Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tea with Chi.
Tea with
Um, this
Hello.
is Chi, by the way. I'm Sochi, and then this is Michael.
Hey.
And what are we doing today?
Talk about what's going on with us, going on in the world.
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on in the world.
Just a bit.
It's a little traumatizing. What else? That's it. God, Michael, we're so boring. Just kidding.
No, it's
I
gonna
feel
be a
like
great episode. We're talking about the fountain later with David. That'll be good
yes,
too.
absolutely. Like I just work and sleep. I feel like that's my whole thing. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts going on here, but
See, the,
in the
the thoughts is
meantime,
what we'll get into.
yeah, we'll get into those thoughts. Alrighty. I don't even know what to say, honestly. My brain is so tired. I'm just like, it's mush. I really do feel like that.
BrainBeMush.
Brain be mushed.
Cue
That's
the
the name of this
intro.
episode. That's the name of this episode. Brain be mush.
Whiniest gato in all the world.
Oh, a little cat.
Little Walter Mittens moment.
He's so
He's
fluffy.
the fluffiest.
He's so cute. Oh my god.
He's
Oh,
such a whiner. First thing in the morning, he wants to be let in, then he wants
yes.
to be let out. He doesn't know what he wants.
That's like my friend Tracy's cat. He's so vocal, like, and it's crazy because I don't really like cats. Oh my god, his little tail. he, he's so cute. I don't
He's
really
adorable.
like cats, but
You don't like cats? What's wrong with you?
they're used when I was younger, they used to be mean to me, okay? Okay, my sister, she had a black cat named Midnight, and he would sit underneath the chair. Oh my god. Oh my god, he's so cute. Oh my god. Oh, he's so sweet. You just tossed him.
Yeah,
Like, I don't even know where you chucked him to. You just chucked him.
just onto the bed.
No, but my sister's little cat Midnight, he would sit underneath the chair in the living room, and I would be so terrified to walk by it, and my sister would send me to like go to the kitchen or wherever the other side. I think it was the kitchen. She would tell me go to the kitchen just so I'd have to walk by that cat who would come and maul my feet when I would walk by it.
Uh,
So like that was my experience with cats. Like when I was younger, every cat just wanted to like totally attack me. Probably
that's how
because I don't know, I was scared. I don't know.
I realized I kind of had like a little breakthrough, like kind of it's very very basic like psychology, but I realized like we've talked about this before, where it's like I don't really fuck with big dogs, like
Mm,
above a certain size. I'm like I don't trust you. Like there's some dogs
right.
where their energy is so good that they come up to you and they're just like hey, and you're like oh
Yeah.
you're just big teddy
Happy
bear.
go lucky.
But ones where there's any edginess at all, I don't like them above a certain size because I'm like that. Especially
Yeah,
when you see like a little old lady walking like a Doberman, I'm like, you can't control that. Like, if he gets mad, I'm fucked. Um,
that's so funny.
but I realized like my grandma on my dad's side had like this fucking big, like mean, like I think the pointy haired ones are the Dobermans, right?
Pointy
The
eared.
pointy eared ones that like cops have.
Uh, well, cops usually have German shepherds.
Maybe it was a
They're
German
kind of
Shepherd.
fluffy.
I can't tell. I'll have to look it up. But my grandma had this dog, and it was like the hound from hell. She kept it chained in the basement, which is some psycho shit.
Yeah, that's
Um,
not right.
and like it bit me when I was a really, really little kid, like 3 or
Oh,
something. And I don't remember that, but like my parents have
it's
told me that.
trauma. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I wonder if that's why I'm instinctively like very wary of big dogs, where I don't like big dogs like that.
Most likely, yeah. Things
But
of
this dog
trauma
was
like
crazy
that.
though. It used to like there were these stairs that kind of faced the outside door, and it would
Hmm.
sit at the top of the stairs in the morning and just stare down. And then when the mailman would come, it would like run down the stairs and leap headfirst and just smash into the window. Just
That
like
dog had a problem.
dog had issues.
That dog was a dominant dog. Like
Hmm.
that's the problem. Um, Oh, dude, I meant to tell you about this. I just recently found a new docu-series. Well, it's not very new. It came out, I guess, in 2019, but it's about, it's called Many Sides of Jane. And it's
Hmm.
about this lady named Jane. She's got 2 kids and she has dissociative identity disorder, DID.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
she has quite a few different parts. I don't think I've seen all her parts that she has, but you see her basically switching to different parts of her system,
What is this on
and
Netflix?
it's on Hulu.
Hulu.
I would definitely suggest it. It's so interesting, and you do get to see the different parts of her come out, and get to see her switch like real time. They kind of like dramatize it because it's like
Sure.
A&E, so they put little like when she's switching and you see she gets a headache. She always gets a headache when she switches, and they do the little kids laughing in the background and the echoes, and it's like, yeah, I didn't have to do that. It's like
Yeah.
crazy enough as it is. Like
Yeah.
the story itself, you don't have to dramatize it for TV.
Hmm.
So, but it's I think it's really educational too, and you get to see her, you know, work in therapy and with her therapist. And at first her therapist was a little annoying because he's very like soft spoken when he's with her.
Hmm.
But then you also have to think about how she has younger parts in her system, so some
Sure.
parts are like 6 and 10 years old, and she was very heavily sexually abused when she was younger by men.
Hmm. That
so
makes sense.
so he's very like gentle with her, and so he takes into consideration all the parts he's talking to, not just the
Right.
one that's in front of him, because
Well, yeah, it's like anyone with a disorder like that, even if it's not literally like one of your personalities is 6 years old, it's
hmm
inherently like it's usually formed in childhood, and there's usually like a regressive part where that this person didn't grow up past a certain kind of age in a way. I
hmm
wonder, because I feel like every time I've seen someone with DID, it's always something like that. I wonder if there's anyone that gets this and it's purely genetic, there was no abuse or anything, or if it's always
um
the mix of
it's
genetics and trauma.
it's it's always with trauma. Like
Huh.
it always is with trauma. They talk about that. And also the thing is what really has me thinking is when you think about, she has her counter, I call it like her direct counterpart, which is Madison. And Madison is she's gay. First of all, she's lesbian. She doesn't want to be with men at all physically, like is very uncomfortable with that.
Yep, that's what
And
that means.
yeah, I mean, like, no, but she's like,
Oh, doesn't even like
she
to be
doesn't,
like around.
but she doesn't let her have the thing. The hard thing about Jane's, and I guess anyone that has DID, like their journey is that when you're working with all these parts, you have to take all parts into consideration if you want to have a relationship. And that person that you're in a relationship with has to be, first of all, emotionally mature enough and smart enough to be with someone that has all these parts and be
I don't know who can do
understanding of
that.
that person. Yeah, it's very hard. You see her like argue with this one guy who's like totally an asshole. And he's like, well, I want Jane. I don't want to be dating a 10-year-old, this and that. And it's like, she can't help it. Like,
Yeah,
you don't have to be an asshole about it. If you just want to break up, say
you
this
should
isn't
just steer
working.
clear. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, that's sad that it's such a distancing disorder, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how you get around that. Like,
It's sad, but it's very interesting. And like I said, her, I guess, direct counterpart, what I call her, Madison, she is very straightforward, direct, and blunt, like the kind of person you would always want to be.
sure.
And what was I going to say about Madison? I already forgot because I got so like sucked into thinking about the whole series. I'm like replaying it in my head,
Mm.
but but it does really affect her. And God, what was I saying about Madison? It was important. She's the protector, though. Oh, yes, the co-consciousness. Oh, my God, the co-consciousness. It's not even co-consciousness. When Madison takes over, she has amnesia. Jane gets amnesia.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
I've seen them talk about that.
yeah, and that's what really blows my mind. Because think about your own consciousness. But
Yeah.
then think about a whole nother part of you having a whole different
It's
consciousness.
basically like if you could just, instead of like blacking out drinking, that could just happen at any time, like throughout the day,
Right. Yeah.
and you're
It's
also,
automated. Yeah.
while you're blacked out, it's not like you're inebriated, so you're only doing kind of
Mm-mm.
stupid stuff, or like only functioning at a low level where you're like, I stumbled home, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're actually functioning and talking and acting and making decisions, and then you just goodbye.
Uh-huh.
What?
She
Like,
and the thing is she that's when Madison comes out, is to take care of the kids most of the time.
mm.
She says, I feel like I'm better equipped to take care of the kids. She goes, Jane gets stressed out,
And that's like the
all
dark
these.
personality, right?
That's yeah, she's the more direct,
Aggro. Yeah.
straightforward, just no
Well, it's funny because I
nonsense.
feel like that's
She's
like
not emotional. That's the thing. She's
right.
fully detached from emotions.
It's so interesting because it's
Hmm.
like it totally fits where you're like, okay, you're a little kid, you're going through things, and you just want there to be like a robot adult to just beat up your
Yeah,
problems and just
that's
take
true.
care of
Yeah,
shit.
exactly.
And
No
it's like
emotions involved.
that's wild. Did you see the movie Split?
No, I didn't. But
What,
then
dude? You gotta watch that.
they say it's a really good movie, but
Yeah.
people with DID hate it.
Yeah, it's one of
Very
those ones where
like,
they're like, and then this is the problem with most movies with that deal with mental illness is that it's
mhm.
like it the main character who has DID in it is also like the violent one and the criminal,
Right,
and that's not
exactly.
usually how mental illness goes. People
Mm-mm.
who are mentally ill are more likely to be the victims. Same thing with like a
Right.
Joker movie or anything where the character's schizophrenic. They're always the one acting up, and so it feeds this idea that we have that they're gonna be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it's super interesting if you have like a quote unquote bad guy character who's got that going on.
Yeah,
So it's like,
it's Hollywood.
yeah, it is Hollywood. And also, I think Split, like, I'm sure that it does kind of contribute to that stigmatizing of it, but it also, like, he's not just an evil character. Like, there's a personality in him that's very dark, but it's overall, it's pretty psychologically, like, sound. Like, it's everything that even his dark parts you see, it's very
Mm-hmm.
clear that it's a defense mechanism and that he's not in full control over it, and that it's like,
Right.
it's a really good movie. Did you ever see Unbreakable?
No.
Okay, so Unbreakable,
No, and then because I know there's
there's
Unbreakable,
three.
Glass and Split,
Yeah,
whatever. Right?
we'll do a thing where we'll have to. I mean, we can talk about it on the podcast where we'll watch all three and then go through them. Glass is
Okay.
okay. Unbreakable is very good. Split, I think, might even be better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Unbreakable was basically it's M. Night Shyamalan and it's his take
I
on
like
like
him.
superheroes, but it's done more real world. So they're not people who are doing anything that's technically impossible. They're just at the peak of what's possible. So it's kind of like a modern version of like, what the real world Hercules was probably like,
Right.
old
Yeah.
Olympians where it's like what they're doing is crazy, but it's not really impossible. And I think that's interesting. But yeah, no, Split's really cool.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
you'll relate to one of the characters in it.
Yeah.
But
And
and
then
James
I
McAvoy
also
is, oh my god, he's so good.
oh, he's a great actor
Yeah.
anyway. He's great. There's another movie someone told me about from work called Sybil,
Hmm.
Sybil, and it's kind of loosely based, I think,
Simple.
on a woman who did have probably DID, but I don't know much
Hmm.
about it, but I think all people kind of feel the same way about the those kind of movies, but
Yeah. Well, it's like how ballet dancers feel about Black Swan. They're like, this isn't what it's really like, and it's like, yeah, it's
yeah.
not really the point of the movie.
That's
Um,
true. That's true. Yeah. But it's true, it does create like a stigma for them, and
yeah,
like her mom started questioning if she was, able to be a parent, like if she was fit enough to be a parent, and
absolutely not.
everyone
Absolutely not. What are you talking? See, this is also where it's annoying, where it's like, hey, we're stable. We should be parents. You're not stable. You should not be parents. What are you talking about? You can become a 6-year-old at any moment. You shouldn't be taking care
no,
of a
that's
kid.
but that's not how it works, Michael. You got to see the documentary before
Okay,
you
all right. Wait,
start
what's the
saying all
documentary
that.
called again?
It's called Many Sides of Jane on Hulu.
Many
It's a
Sides of Jane.
docu-series. Yeah.
I
I
just
think
struggle
she's
to
a
think of how
great
someone with DID could honestly, seriously be
well
like, yeah, I'm a
because
stable personality. Like, what?
no, because you don't know enough about it yet. But you
Okay, all
have to
right, all
see,
right.
you gotta see her interact with her kids because she's a fucking great mom. And even
Okay.
when her other sides come out, she's great. Her number one priority for all her parts is keep the kids safe. That's what each of her parts talk about. So, Yeah, I think she's a great mom, and she seems like a nice lady, and I hope, it's it's hard, dealing with that much trauma. She went through a lot.
Yeah.
And she never identifies her abusers, but you never see her. She
I
never
just
mentions her dad.
so okay, but what I think about sometimes, and this is hard as a kid when you're dealing with parents anyway, think of how inconsistent and paradoxical a person with one personality can be. I feel like how could it not just be worse if you're someone with multiple personalities? Like, that's just got. I mean, again, I'm not saying, obviously you said she's a great mom and stuff, and I want to see the documentary to find out how it works. But I'm just thinking, like, as a kid, what a mind fuck. Like,
Yeah, she says too, like her kids notice the energy change. She
yeah.
goes, but they don't really notice like how she's totally different. But you see the kids also switch their attitude when she switches to like Madison. They're more gruff with her,
Right.
And
Yeah.
Madison's more also gruff because she doesn't have those emotions attached too much. But Jane, like when you see Jane as like just Jane,
Right.
she's super affectionate. Like she's awesome.
It's
I don't
super
know. You
interesting.
you gotta watch it. It's so
I gotta
interesting.
watch
I
that. That
love it.
sounds really cool.
Yeah, I'm only on episode like 4 or something, and I restarted it because I started showing Frankie it, and he thinks it's really interesting as well.
Hmm.
So I love all those kind of things. I mean,
Yeah, it's super. I mean, that's so fascinating.
cool, so cool. And it's just so cool how our brain like it protects itself that way. It protects us that way, in a sense, because it is a survival mechanism.
Right.
So that's why like I just can't wait to start school and study the shit I want to study, honestly.
Yeah.
It'll be so interesting. Um yeah, have you seen have you had time to see anything else that I've recommended?
No, I watched The Fountain this week, and then other than that, like the only thing I've watched really is like a couple of sports games and then like some news. The news has been crazy this week, dude.
Okay,
Oh my
so
God.
like I kind of clocked out after what, like I think maybe 2 days ago.
I've been in and out. A lot of it's going
Right.
over the same ground, and a lot of it's that kind of
Right.
thing where it's just going to be months of dissecting what happened. I wrote down a couple of things. So one thing that I thought was significant was that Trump made an announcement that he will not be at the inauguration, which to me sounds like he just gave his supporters a green light to try and pull some shit at the inauguration. He's like, I'm not even going to be there, so if you want to blow the place up, fucking go for it. Like, that seems really sketchy of him to announce that.
Right.
There was this whole big debate about whether they were going to use the 25th Amendment to try and remove him or whether they were going to impeach him. And Pence was not pro using the 25th Amendment. I'm not sure if they've come to a full decision on that. They were kind of going back and forth. They are impeaching him, though. Impeachment proceedings have already gone through the House. They won't go through the Senate until after he's out of office anyway. So it's not going to affect his actual term. But I think it's really important that they finalize it just for precedent, just for the future, just for like, hey, FYI, you can't do this kind of thing because we will get you and make sure you can never be president again and bring criminal charges and all that stuff. Yeah, dude, it's been crazy though watching the news because it's been a whole bunch of the people that were inside the building and outside and all that. They've been a lot of arrests. I saw on the news this morning they were talking to cops, one of whom they had video of him being like, he was being squished into a wall by like crowds of people trying to just like jam like or through to a door, and he was trying to get in the door but he couldn't, and they were just trying to like squash him like a bug against the window. And it was crazy. Yeah. One of the things that I do want to also kind of talk about is there have been comparisons with this by both the people opposed to what happened and also the people who were part of what happened, comparing it to Kristall Nacht. Do you know what Kristall Nacht is?
No.
Okay, so Kristall Nacht, it's German. It means crystal night, or what's commonly called the Night of Broken Glass. And that happened in 1938. And basically, it was a violent riot that was carried out by Nazi paramilitary and civilian groups. So we think of the Nazis, and I feel like we think of it all as like it's too easy to just write Hitler off as crazy. First of all, he was kind of crazy, but that's not all that was going on. But we write Hitler off as crazy, and we think of the Nazis as top down from Hitler. So it's like, oh, the government just become a bunch of pricks all of a sudden, and that's not what happened. His supporters loved him the way Trump supporters love Trump. So Kristallnacht, civilians went around and they went after the Jews. What happened was a Jewish person assassinated a German diplomat, and then Nazi supporters took that upon themselves to, okay, let's just get Jews. So they went around and they destroyed 267 synagogues, 7,000 Jewish businesses, and they incarcerated 30,000 Jews and started putting them in concentration camps. This is before, like, the quote-unquote final solution even happened.
And the Jews were doing great at that time, right?
They were doing like nothing. They were.
But I'm saying like for their own like economy and shit like that. I think the Jews were like on top,
that's kind of the stereotype. But there's truth in it. They've always as a people they've been for a while. Good business. But then
people. That's one of the other reasons the Germans were so angry about the Jews, because the Jews were doing better and they were. It's kind of like what is it? The Black Wall Street.
Right.
Riots.
You see someone different from you doing well and you go, hey, they're doing well. That must be why I'm doing crap. And it's like, no, it's nothing to do with why you're doing crap. But yeah, it was this crazy thing. And they don't know how many Jews were killed on the night of Kristallnacht. The estimates range a lot. They range from 91 to 638. And what's most important about Kristallnacht is that the German authorities didn't do shit. They just stood there and were like, oh yeah, keep going. Kind of like how we saw police standing around or even helping the rioters at the Capitol. Not all police, but a lot of them. And one of the things that was common at the riots, and also just in general at these kind of pro-Trump events, the Proud Boys have printed up T-shirts that they sell to people and give out. And the T-shirts say 6MJWNE, which stands for 6 million Jews was not enough. So it's not just that these people are like Nazis, they're actual Nazis, which is fucking crazy. And I think it's important because we don't think about things like Kristallnacht with the Nazis. We think that it was all governmental power. There was no people behind it. It was just kind of like, oh no. It's not like that. It grew as a movement. There was radical support. And even in America, it's like, this is not the first time that there's been like attempts at fascist insurrection. And it will not be the last. And it's like, we're in a time like the 30s where it's like, we need to really be dealing with this.
Yeah, definitely. Damn, that is so crazy. I can't even but yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of the same shit going on in the news. Yeah. I know that they're trying to impeach Trump and everything like that. And I don't know why. Well, look, I don't know why Mike Pence sat there and didn't invoke the 25th, because.
Well, especially because do you know what they were yelling outside?
Yeah, hang Mike Pence.
Hang Mike Pence. True. Crazy. What year is it, dude?
Crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
But I think, and it's not just him. There are a few Republican senators and a lot of Republican members of the House of Representatives. When they voted to impeach Trump, 10 Republicans voted for impeachment, and 80 voted against it. So there's a lot of Republicans who are still, I think there's two different things going on. There's people who are actually ideologically in line with him, and maybe they're just a little quieter about it. So they're kind of pseudo-fascist, but really they don't really care. And the Republican Party has been like this, just a little bit below the surface. And then there's the others who are just scared. And they're either scared of, one, losing power by not being elected by Trump's base, or they're scared of actually being hurt by Trump's base. And that's the part that I think is like, because being scared of losing electors, I mean, it's not justifiable, but it's pretty common. We see that a lot, where they don't do the right thing because they're like, well, if I do the right thing, these assholes aren't going to vote me in again. And I get that. I can wrap my head around that. But what's crazy is that I've been seeing on the news, like, a lot of government people saying like, oh, well, if we impeach Trump, there are going to be riots in the street again. If we do the right thing, there's going to be consequences from the mob. And I don't like authoritarianism or like strong government against the people kind of thing. But I feel like this is the kind of situation where it's like, okay, if the mob is trying to instill their will, just kick their ass. Be like, yeah, like it's not like, oh, we won't impeach him because we don't want to anger the mob. No, if the mob shows up, you beat them off and you make sure that they don't wait. Like, you're the government. What are you talking like?
Right.
In what other situation are we like, oh, well, there might be a terrorist attack, so we're just going to cancel everything? What?
Right.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to
True.
let them win like that? That's crazy. Like, these are
Yeah.
terrorists. You're more powerful than them. Stomp their ass out. Like,
That's the thing too. Like people aren't thinking about it that way. These are domestic terrorists.
yeah.
Like they come in all shapes and sizes and colors. So yeah, I don't really get it. I don't understand the thought process. And also like my big thing too is like if I were my parents, I'd be like, hell yeah, fuck that shit. Fuck this guy. He's shat on me his whole fucking presidency.
Yeah. I don't know
What
what
kind of loyalty, weird loyalty is this? Like,
it's
I
not
need
loyalty
loyalty.
to Trump. It's
But yeah, I'm sure
there's
he's
a
scared,
rift in the
you know.
Republican Party right now where there's some of them who are like, maybe we can rely on the supporters we used to rely on, conservative
Mm-hmm.
kind of fiscal conservatives and stuff, which I still have problems with, and I hope that things get peaceful enough that that's who we're arguing with again, is
Mm-hmm.
people who are like, no, we should really, but but then there's some Republicans who kind of see this trend and are trying to go with it. And they're like, oh, well, it's alt-right. I guess I'll be alt-right then. And that is really disturbing to watch. And yeah, can only go to a place, that's more violent than where we already are. What's also been crazy is like, so on the like quote unquote moral Republican side, where the few who are actually crossing the line and kind of trying to impeach him and stuff, one of the leaders of that, at least vocally, is Liz Cheney, who's Dick Cheney's daughter, which is kind of funny that you have like Dick Cheney really like he set the bar on fucking democracy, so it's kind of funny
Mm-hmm.
that his kid is now like, hey guys, democracy. It's like, didn't you and she's also, as far as ethics go, she also strongly opposed gay marriage, despite the fact that her sister is gay. So she's not exactly a morally upright person anyway.
Right.
So it is kind of also funny that you have these people who are like more or less despicable, but they do it quietly, and they're like, "Hey, now we ought to really clean this up." It's like, what?
Fucking hypocrites. They're all hypocrites. That's the thing.
Yeah.
God. Jesus Christ. That's a shit show. I don't know what's going on anymore. And it's hard. I mean, you can do your part, you can educate yourself and vote for whatever, but in the long run, we don't have that control.
Yeah, all we can control is how we react, basically.
Right, exactly.
Which is scary in and of itself. I think about that sometimes, where it's like, because the right thing is often really hard to do and might come with some severe risk to yourself. And I think a lot of us think like, oh, no, I'd have been up there fighting the Nazis and stuff. And it's like, would you? Or would you been like one of the millions of Germans who were just kind of scared and just stayed inside and like, oh yeah, we can smell the bodies from the camp down the road, but we're not gonna. What are we gonna do? And that sense of powerlessness, I feel like we gotta find a way to overcome that, but I don't know how we do that.
It's scary when the other side has powerful weapons to take you down.
Yeah.
And you don't. Yeah. And you just kind of have to live with the position you were put in, it feels like. I mean, and I think a lot of us feel stuck in that sense, but at the same time, it's finding what to do in that space, and how to do it.
Well, I think that's kind of when we kind of come back to this a lot, but I think that's also why this individualistic culture doesn't really work. Because as an individual, what are you going to do? You can't resist a mob as an individual, but you can if you're part of a community that like looks out for each other and is active.
Right.
And that's difficult to find.
It is. I was watching this 2020 episode of this girl who had gotten kidnapped by her teacher or whatever, and they went to a commune. Like I never knew like what a commune was. I never heard of it. I mean, I've heard the word, but I didn't know what it was, you know.
Yeah.
But
what kind of commune? Like, what was their ideology?
They're just like off the grid hippies.
Okay.
And like, yeah, so I was thinking like, how cool is it to live like that?
Dude, I want to do that.
Like in the mountains of California, you know.
No, fuck California. I want to get out of California, dude.
Dude, but the mountains of California are so gorgeous.
I know, but California is beautiful, but all the shit happens in California. It's the natural stuff like the fire and the earthquakes. It's always going to be a center for the riots and shit. It's like I love California, but part of me is like, I kind of want to leave.
Well, every capital would be a center for the riots. I mean,
exactly. That's why I'm kind of the whole like, I'm gonna go to the big city and make it thing. I'm kind of over it. I want to go to a small city where the rent is affordable and people aren't killing each other quite as much. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's like, there's nowhere to run really, but.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm like, where's that? Because let me know. I mean,
there are places though. Seattle, Salt Lake, Portland.
You're looking at fires over there too.
That's true. I guess really the big one is rent.
Rent is.
But
that's the thing.
Because that's the thing with LA is that it's not just that there's all this stuff to deal with. It's also that it's like I'm going broke in order to deal with this shit. So what am I like? I can't afford to live here, and it's also like oftentimes a scary place to live. It's like that's a double.
Yeah.
Like, what am I getting out of this situation?
Exactly.
But unless you're an actor, it's like why? But it's also then again you got the weather and the beach and it's beautiful and the culture is fun and so.
The cliffs. I love it. I love it out here. I don't know. Well, I mean, of course, I'd love to be somewhere a little more out in the quiet.
Yeah.
But I also don't like to be too far from like cities or anything because I don't like to be too far from the grocery store.
Yeah, I agree.
Like all the necessities. Like look, if I'm driving more than 25 minutes, it's too much for me.
That's
actually
too much.
More than 20. Like.
Well, that's why I like small cities because you have the advantages of convenience like in a big city, but you don't have quite as much of the.
Yeah. It's a little quieter.
Yeah, a little quieter, a little more peaceful. Like I'm just over the subway and the bus and the.
Well, dude, once you get your own car, I mean, that's a whole different story. The feeling changes.
That's true.
But the thing is also like the part of LA that you're living, you're in the middle of LA. Like it's the worst part.
Yeah, the valley's crazy. It's hot.
Yeah,
there's gangs
it's
and it's
hot.
fucking. Yeah.
There's so much going on. Oh my god. Yeah, it's too, and there's so much traffic. Like,
oh my god, the traffic is crazy.
But fortunately, I don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah, how's it going? With the whole like you're having to get tested and all that stuff. How did that situation all pan out?
So yeah, today I'm gonna try to make it at 12:30 to an appointment. They're like 15 minutes away, but I have the appointment for 12:30 to 12:45. My boss was asking me if I'll make it out in time, which I'm sure I will because I work at 2. But yeah, I'm gonna get that test too, and then they ordered a free test, and so she just told me that I'll take that whenever it comes in, but. All loud and shit.
Is Frankie playing video games?
He said I forgot my headphones. Yes, he's playing game. He's been a lazy butt this morning. But yeah, so I got a test today and then I'll see what happens. I feel fine. Like I don't have any symptoms.
That's good.
So, hopefully I'm okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, everyone else came up negative, basically.
That's good.
And she was, my boss was confused because, there's a few guys that hang out together, and one of them tested negative. And she's like, that's so strange though, and I'm like, yeah, sometimes that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of luck of the draw, and some people are might be immune to it. We don't really know what's going on with it yet.
Yeah, it's very strange. I think I don't know. There's a lot more I gotta look into on that, but it's also still like we're still learning about this thing,
Yeah.
And it's already, changing within its own structure. So yeah.
I feel like this last leg is like the longest, because now it's like the vaccine's out, we're just waiting on the distribution.
Yeah.
And it's been so long now that it doesn't even feel like a thing. Like, I'm too tired to be stressed about it. I'm just like, well, I'll try not to get it, and if I do, I don't know. Like, it's just kind of like, it's been such a constant that it's kind of just, you got to live your life. But obviously, at the same time, it's like, I can't wait for things to open up and everything to be,
of course,
better. But
and like everywhere it's different. Like in Orange County, they're open, for dining. Here they're closed. Like LA County is totally closed for dining. Where else? What aren't places open out there right now, Michael?
Yeah,
like outdoor dining.
Places in Reno are open. They're open for indoor dining too. It's just limited, so it's like every other table or whatever.
That's crazy, dude.
No one can sit at the bar. It is crazy. It's kind of. I mean, I don't think that they should be doing it. But I also kind of understand that, like, as a business owner, seeing as there's no subsidies, like, what are you supposed to do?
Right.
But really, there should be subsidies. Everybody should be getting paid to stay at home. There should just be a temporary, like, moratorium on rent for business owners, all that stuff. Like, but,
money's too important.
Money's too important, so it's
fuck the people.
Exactly. It's crazy, but it's also kind of a little bit less scary here because it's just not as many people,
That's true. Yeah.
All the places where the big cities, it's much more frightening because it's just like you kind of have no choice but to come in contact with like a lot of people, even if you're wearing a mask.
Right, exactly. And touch a lot of surfaces that others have touched.
Right.
This guy. The damn cat.
He cannot decide whether he wants to be in or out, man.
He wants both. He wants the freedom.
He wants the options. But then if the door's open, then it's like, then I'm hearing everything that's going on. I can't focus on what I'm doing. Oh.
True, I feel that. Oh my gosh.
BrainBeMush.
BrainBeMush. It really do be much. Honestly, it's been, I mean, I had how many days, where I didn't have a day off. I don't know. It's been a while.
Yeah, you've been super busy.
I just been working, and with the whole schedule change, and it's crazy. But I'm hoping next week I get my Tuesday, Wednesday off because, I had booked that hotel to so Frankie and I could go to San Diego and just walk around somewhere, go to a trail or something.
That'd be cool.
Walk around Balboa Park, because nothing's open over there. It's all closed. But it's just get out of LA for a minute, and go somewhere familiar. I just felt like I needed a change of scenery. So hopefully, I'm gonna get my test results, and we're supposed to go Tuesday, Wednesday, but
cool.
What's today?
That'll be good.
Today's
Friday. Yeah, I've been in the same way. I'm I've started losing track of the days.
It doesn't even matter, to be honest.
Yeah.
Especially in quarantine, it doesn't matter. And even with me working, it doesn't matter what the date is. It doesn't matter what day it is.
It mattered last semester with school because
true.
I had it was a fairly light schedule though. So it was okay, Monday I got to do some work. Wednesday I got this going on. I've got these meetings. But right now I'm in the winter semester, which is 5 weeks, but each course still has 16 weeks worth of material. So it's just every day, it's just a lot. Like every morning, it's like a lot of reading, a lot of homework. So it's like, it just doesn't matter what day it is anymore, because it's just like I'm constantly
Same
like
thing.
busy,
Mm-hmm.
which is good. It's passing the time, but it's also like exhausting.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly. That's why I feel like I need a vacation or some shit.
yeah,
I can't wait for the next time I'm able to just take a few days off and just do something somewhere.
yeah,
And hopefully by that time, everything's open again. So I
yeah,
can do something, actually fun.
yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I guess you never realize how privileged you are until it's all taken away.
Don't know what you got till it's gone.
Pure, pure love. All right, Guru of the Week.
Guru to you.
Guru to you. That's what it is. It's Fuckup of the Week, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Do you have any fuck ups of the week?
mm, I want to say sleeping all day yesterday, but I totally loved that.
And you
So,
need that. Like, don't feel guilty
yeah,
about that.
my body needed it. Fuckup of the Week. I guess what's fucked up is the fact that it was so hard for me to get a fucking COVID test, and I'm
True.
still waiting on it.
But that
But
wasn't, nah, that doesn't count. That wasn't a fuck up because you handled
I
that
know,
situation
but
so well. Like,
well, I don't know. See, I don't do enough to like fuck up. Like I just do the
no,
same
it's good.
shit every
Honestly,
day.
like, it's been good. And I've been struggling with this segment too. And that's good because that
That's
means I haven't been
good.
fucking up recently. Like,
Hey,
um,
maybe we're not that
although
bad, Michael.
I microwaved my tea the other day with the tea bag in it. So then
Listen,
it just tasted like paper afterwards. So there was that.
um, that is the biggest fuck up I've ever heard, like in my life.
Straight to hell.
You know better. Like, aren't you British or whatever?
Be better, be best.
Be better, be best. Oh yeah, yeah. Shit's funny.
Yeah,
Um,
so who's your guru to you?
okay, girl, to me is look. I don't do much, and I don't know much. So honestly, I'd say my mom would be my guru. I've been thinking
Hmm.
about her, and I don't know. She just really lives. I feel like she just lives with me because she was such a big part of me and like my life and like
Yeah.
um yeah, I just feel like I don't know. She taught me a lot, and I think the things that she taught me, staying open-minded, you know, um, learning, learning constantly, like keep learning and ask questions and
Hmm.
do your research. She always told me do your research about anything, about religion, about politics, anything.
Yeah.
So do your research, find where you stand, and stand for what you believe in. And I think i I keep that in mind every day. I do my best. I really do my best every day, and I think that's important for everyone to feel like they do their best on a daily.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's just a really big reminder, and I have her every day in my mind, every day. I feel like she's just kind of engraved like part of me now. So it just,
Hmm.
I miss her like physically here, but I also feel like she lives eternally in all my memories. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's fine.
That's such a
So
good
it's
one.
all good.
And your mom was totally like the embodiment of like a guru in your everyday life, where she was just kind of there and just kind of like, I
Yeah.
feel like she could look at you and was just like, oh, I get it. Okay. I know
Yeah,
where you are. Like in yeah.
exactly. And she never like pushed me or anything. She was always really understanding. And I always knew that she was understanding. And she always reminded me, she's like, look, I was a teenager too. Like, I know what you're feeling.
Hmm.
And she never made me feel alone in that sense, which I think is really important for a parent, to have their children
Absolutely.
just know that, look, I understand. And yeah, she was just she let me make my own decisions, which I think has helped me to this day. She always asked me, what do you want to do? And I think a lot of people in my family don't know that. And they always think that she was the one pushing things on me. The only thing she ever pushed was the fact that I had so much self-doubt and anxiety that I didn't want to do things. You know, I'd get
Right.
overwhelmed and I was like, no, I don't want to. And she'd be like, you can and
Yeah.
you will. She's like, you're going to do great. And every time she pushed me to do something that I really did want to do, but was too
But
afraid
you
to
were
do.
scared.
Yeah, I was scared. I fucking did great. You know what I mean? And
That's
like,
so important.
yeah, so she pushed me and it's like she tried to get me to believe in myself, but even to the day, like I struggle with that and pushing myself, you
Well,
know.
everyone does. You know,
Yeah.
I'm in this communications class where we're having to do like small group work, and it's frustrating because it's small groups and stuff. But there are a couple of people in it who just clearly haven't had that, and so they have like blatantly have no self-belief. And so there was this one person where all she had to do was basically come up with a sentence to sum up the fact that she'd been like Googling something and doing research. And she was like, hey guys, can you help me? I can't do this. And I was like, you just defeated yourself by saying you can't. And all it is just putting what you just experienced into words. You're a person. You can totally do that. Why are you putting these limitations on yourself for the simplest thing? And it's just it's just being a kind of fear of getting it wrong. And it's like,
yeah,
you got to be able to, get past that.
yeah. And the big thing my mom would always say was, I can't means I won't. So I can't was never, it was never allowed in the house. I was never allowed to say it. And every time I said it, she'd be like, what did you say? You don't say that. And I'm like, well, I can't. She goes, no, that means that you won't. You're already setting up yourself to fail. And it's true. Like, and I still do that to this day, but I think that's just, something that on a daily you have to also practice and force yourself to do, really, if you want to change that part. But yeah, I mean, what about you?
Something well, I'll get to mine in a second, but kind of related to that. You know how last week we talked about how in the early Star Wars films there's a spiritual element, right? And they've kind of gotten away from that as it's gone on. But I was thinking about in the very, very first one. You've seen that, right?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Okay, so there, the bit where old Ben Kenobi is fighting Darth Vader, and he suddenly surrenders, and he goes, "If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can imagine." And then he strikes him down, and he disappears, and you're like, "What?" And because then, what he, in the literal sense, he becomes more powerful because then he's a ghost, and then he can kind of, wherever Luke is, talk to him, and be like, "Oh, use the Force, or do this, or go to Yoda, or whatever." And I never really thought about it in the less literal sense, in a more spiritual way. Because when I first saw that, I always be like, how are you more powerful now? You could have given Luke advice if you were still alive. Why didn't you just keep fighting? Why did you surrender and then just allow yourself to die? How does that make you more powerful now? I didn't really understand. And I think what kind of clicked was like, oh, if you were alive, you'd be dismissible. Luke could just be like, oh, well, you're just an old dude and you're not any better and blah, blah, blah. But now that you're dead, there's significance to you. There's a power that you have where in Luke's memory, he's going, oh, what would old Ben tell me to do? Okay, I'll do that. And I think in a weird way, it's like there's that kind of, like you were saying, like your mother's still with you. And in a way, maybe even more than if she was actually physically with you, because it's like there's that extra... exactly that thing where you don't know what you got till it's gone, kind of a thing. And when you're away from someone, you know what they're going to say. They don't need to say it. So just having that memory of what they would say is kind of always with you, and that it's really a powerful idea.
Yeah, it's more powerful than, and I think about that sometimes. Like, that's true. If she were here physically, she could tell me something, and then I'd probably not do it.
Right, you'd be like, okay, all right, yeah.
And then I'd go cry to her after it didn't work out,
Right.
But now I think about what would she do? What was the best option that she would choose from that? And you go with that, instead of, I don't know, not, I guess. So yeah, it's true. I mean,
but yeah, my guru this week is Robert Evans. He does a few podcasts. One of them is called Behind the Bastards, where he does research into history's worst people and does stuff that you wouldn't know about them, that kind of sheds new light on them. And he does some other podcasts too. He's part of a podcast called Worst Year Ever, which they named in the beginning of 2020, and boy did that turn out to be a really perfect name. But yeah, he's just he was before he kind of did podcasts, he was more of a straight up journalist, and he went into like Iraq and Afghanistan, places like that, and kind of covered what was going on there. And when he does, like, just for a podcast that he's doing, he'll read a whole book and take notes on it and do research, and like he's like a proper journalistic person with integrity, and then also has personality on top of all that. So he's just really inspirational to me because of just how much he does and how well he does it. So
awesome. Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I was gonna say probably better if it was renamed Worst Decade Ever.
Worst Decade Ever, yeah.
Because 2021's hasn't started off very strong either.
No. I think, yeah, there's that thing where we all keep going to this, like, oh, when things are back to normal, it's not going to be, we'll be past COVID. You'll be allowed to go to, clubs and restaurants and stuff again, but it's not going to be back to how it was, like, ever. It's, that's not kind of how it works.
Yeah, it's a little traumatizing. little bit of trauma from year 2020 and 2021.
But some good things too. I think some silver linings, I think all of us had no choice but to get to know ourselves a little bit better, which I think is good.
I agree. I think hopefully people are thinking more about therapy and getting therapy this year.
Dude, yeah. If someone in their mid-20s hasn't been through therapy or isn't at least starting to go through therapy, I'm like, a little suspicious. Why aren't you?
Right.
You think you don't need to be fixed?
Why aren't you taking care of yourself?
Yeah, it's like, come on, there's things wrong with you. You got to work on. Like, go. Do your homework, motherfucker. Like,
exactly. Do your homework on yourself. Like, are you in therapy right now?
It's been so helpful.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah, sometimes it's, depending on her schedule, and it's just over the phone, but depending on her schedule, it's can be sometimes every couple of weeks, but lately it's been kind of every week.
That's good.
Yeah, and it's helped a lot already. Yeah.
That's awesome. If you feel comfortable sharing, if you don't, but like that's fine. But I was gonna ask, what is your goal? Like, and when you guys talk about your goal or whatever.
So initially, when I first started therapy, it was more it was a lot of behavioral activation stuff, because I was having a lot of anxiety, and then that would lead me into depression and depressive cycles. So it's like, oh, well, I feel anxious, so I'm gonna, smoke some weed and, get drunk. And then I feel shame at that. And, oh, I didn't do anything. And then it's a cycle of depression and anxiety.
Right.
And then I did some behavioral activation therapy where it's like, okay, let me make a list, let me do some stuff. And the more things you do, the less room there is for depression, and you turn that anxious energy into productive energy. And so I feel like I'm in a good place with all of that right now. So lately what we've been doing is more kind of the classical therapy approach, where it's like, okay, let's deep dive into the childhood thing and my relationship with my parents and like all of that stuff to kind of figure out. Let's
unpack this.
Yeah, where I go, okay, here's this behavior. It sounds like this, but I can't make an official diagnosis. What does it sound like to you? And then she's like, oh, that sounds like this, and here's how you think about this, and that's all been really, really helpful. In kind of figuring myself out and figuring out my parents a little bit more. So yeah,
I think the really helpful thing about therapy too is it really validates like what you feel, and a therapist will always remind you to set your boundaries and to keep yourself mentally healthy.
Yeah,
and it's a good reminder. It's just a good reminder for everybody, but
And one of the ways she kind of characterized it is that she was like, this process is basically learning to be a foster parent to yourself. That doesn't mean that you come in and go, the last parent was just shit, we're throwing all that out the window. Because some of that was good, right?
Right.
We're going to keep the good stuff. We're just not going to do the stuff that didn't work anymore. We're going to do this new foster parenting. And you're going to kind of learning to parent yourself a little bit
Basically, yeah. Manage yourself.
Yeah. What was it like when, because you're not in therapy right now, you guys concluded, right? But
Yeah.
what kind of structure did you guys follow?
So we did a lot of what do they call it? Cognitive behavioral therapy, obviously.
Okay.
But yeah, we talked a lot about like my family dynamic, frustration. I have a lot of frustration with some family members. Um, but and the biggest thing was me getting over that. And, if I think about it, of course I will get upset about it again. But the thing is I've been able to kind of accept that, you know, these things upset me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I went through trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, it is hurtful, but that doesn't need to be the only thing I focus on,
Right.
and I have to accept that I have these feelings about it. I can write about it when I need to. I can, choreograph about it when I need to, whatever.
Yeah.
I know how to manage and cope. And now that's the most important thing for me, was just learning how to cope with the thoughts that I have in my head, and also reminding myself not to let my thoughts get ahead of me, because
Mm.
it's very easy to do that, and to think and to get paranoid, to get, you know, um, overwhelmed. It's very easy.
Yeah.
But you have to baby yourself, That's kind of what it is in a sense. Like, you have to
Well,
be
I
a
like
little
that you
gentle with
mention
yourself.
I like that you mention allowing yourself to feel the feelings and notice them, because this will definitely come up when we talk about the fountain in a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, but one of the things that's interesting is that if you don't address something, sometimes literally vocally, or at least just like you don't let yourself feel it all the way, by not focusing on it, in a way, it's all you can focus on.
Hmm.
Whereas if you focus on it for a second and you give it the attention it needs, now it has it. You can let it go and do other things
Hmm.
now. And so it's this
Exactly.
weird paradox where it's like, you need to focus on it in order to be able to stop focusing on it.
Exactly. Otherwise, it manifests in other ways, like addiction, or,
Right.
you know.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, yeah, it's true. But I eventually felt like I was doing so well, because a lot of the stress factors in my life were financial, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard because you feel so stuck I feel like, to be honest, when it comes to finances and stress, like, there is no like answer for that. The only
No.
answer is to make more money, and
Yeah.
then you'll feel better. And that's what happened. Like, once I got my job and I started getting regular paychecks, I feel like my mental health really stabilized, like, because I
Yeah.
was already doing fine with everything else, but I was just
It's also
stressing.
important to point out here. So, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're familiar with that,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, once you get above the um, the physical stability point,
Hmm.
then you can start working on your emotional needs, blah blah blah. So
Right.
money does not equal happiness above the point where all your base needs are met.
Right.
What we are
Hmm.
talking about is not like, oh, I need more money for my Apple Watch. We are talking about survival levels and like,
Right.
can I
Like,
pay my bills? Like,
hmm.
and I just
Exactly.
wanted to clarify that for the audience. Like,
Absolutely.
this is getting to the physical needs being met part
I
of that
mean,
pyramid.
growing up, we had a lot of times when we were very broke, where all we ate was rice, beans, and tortillas.
Yeah.
And, there were times when my mom was in the hospital and I had no means of getting food. So I would just eat canned tuna straight out of the can, throw some Cholula on that bitch, some pepper, and mix that up and just eat canned tuna, like two
Yeah.
cans of tuna a day. Like, so
Jeez.
that's I think I live with that kind of fear too,
Sure.
like, of being just in that position again, to where I just can't even afford to eat anymore. But the thing is, when I was young, like that just wasn't in my control, like just was out of my control. So, and that's the thing too, like when you go through things like that as a kid, you get that anxiety because you realize the lack of control you have as a child, like, and you really focus on that. So you start, as an adult, your brain only knows that, so your brain goes to that, way of reacting to things. So,
and that's the fucked up thing about trauma, is that something happens, especially if something happens more or less out of the blue. It's very difficult for you not to expect it to come out of the blue. So I was attacked once, just kind of happened randomly. This end of the block, everything's fine. This end of the block, suddenly I'm in an incredibly violent situation. And it's taken a long time for me to get over, and I still am not totally over, where I'm looking for that. Where because that happened out of the blue, I go, well, it could happen out of the blue again. Or with health things, it's very like that, and so that kind of thing where you know how quickly it can suddenly, your health can go off the rails, or you can have no money and no food. Of course, it's like, part of you's almost waiting for that to happen at any second. And this is also, again, where we need to, form our hippie commune up in the mountains somewhere, because two isn't enough, because if one person falls off the edge, you're fucked. You're on your own now. You need a tribe. We're meant to be tribal creatures. That's the only way we can really do this whole thing. And it's like, it's hard when we're operating out of, these very, very small family units, if that, if not just completely on your own.
Exactly. But yeah, a lot of my focus in therapy was, I felt unsafe for a long time. I didn't feel stable, secure in my living situation. I always felt like I had to leave. And I usually did have to leave, because I'd be living with somebody or something, whatever would happen. And but then I was like, I told my therapist, I'm like, look, I've been doing really well. And she said I was going to recommend that we have our last session like next week or something. And, I told her, I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like I need it right now. Like, maybe in a few years, maybe in a couple years, maybe like in a few months, I might need it, something might happen. But as of right now, I'm okay. So, I mean, I feel great. Like, I honestly every day I thank the world for what I have, because I feel very fortunate. I feel very lucky to have what I have, because I know what it's like to not have anything. So I feel very grateful. I've always thanked the world for giving me the opportunity to have my own apartment at age 23. I got it when I was 22, to have, food, to have money, to have Katana, to have Frankie. Like, I mean, anything. It just, and I think keeping that grateful energy just makes it that much better. And I feel like more things flourish from that than, if you're not looking at it like that. And like, I'm not one of those people that are like 100% positive or anything, because I'm realistic, but it's like, put good energy into it and then allow whatever else, to come out from the other end. So yeah,
that's awesome.
I guess it's all right. But yeah, so okay, well. Well, how do you want to do the whole intro into what we're gonna be talking about? The fountain.
So I guess we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll introduce our guest and talk about the fountain.
Cool. Let's do it. Sorry that took so long. Hold on. Now I gotta put on my fucking video. God damn it. Oh, hi guys. Like, I couldn't change the Bluetooth speaker. It's all bullshit. But yeah.
All
Can
good?
you hear me?
Yeah.
Don't look at me all questionable. Shit. Make me insecure and shit. The fuck.
Oh, scary looking.
Yeah. Damn. Your hair looks nice, Michael. Get it, bitch. Fuck. Yes. Oh my god. Alright, yeah. You lead this part, Michael, because I don't know shit about shit. Oh, holy shit. Hold on, I can't hear you.
I can't either. Yeah, you probably muted again.
How about now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. All right. Welcome back after the break. Seamless transition, obviously. Here with my two best friends in the world, David Huffmire and Xochitl Velazquez. You guys haven't met before, right? I know I fucked up your
No.
No, it's true.
No, you said it. You said it fine. It's just like I never hear you say my last name, so.
That's true.
Yeah. Cool beans. This is so cool. Like, the two besties finally meeting.
Yeah, link the two separate worlds up.
Right. True life. The ghetto and the not so ghetto. Yeah.
Which is which? We don't even know.
There's probably going to be a lot of cat meows going on in the background of this.
Because Mittens is such a whiner.
Yeah, what was it yesterday when we recorded? We were hearing some meows. It was cute though. I like it.
It adds to it.
Yeah, it does. It's like, this is real life. Go ahead, Michael. This is your segment. I don't know what.
Right. So
I'm chilling.
We're talking about The Fountain, which is a movie that David turned me on to, like, I don't even know, like 4 years ago or something. And then I turned Xochitl onto it. And yeah, we're going to talk about it.
Fucking love it. Love that movie.
How about David? Do you want to take us through like what's like a summary of the movie, just for the? Oh yeah, spoiler alert, by the way, to anyone who hasn't seen it. If you haven't seen it, don't listen to this part.
No, don't.
Well, watching it is the first time you kind of get the freak out Inception thing where you're like, wait, hold on, and then the trailer is horrible for the movie because it's like, how can you really explain that movie in a trailer? But I'd say it's a book. It's a book that's a movie, and it's meta, very meta, and you can look at it in a lot of different ways. But I personally think that like every storyline that you put on it, like the top one is that end all, it's a book, and it's a movie about a book. Even if it's like it's not finished, it's like that's still in the book. You know what I mean? Like writing a book in the book. When you watch it that many times, that's what happens.
For sure. Yeah,
but
the trailer's weird, and then same thing, like if you Google The Fountain, the synopsis that comes up is total crap, because they have this idea where they're like, Hugh Jackman is traveling through time, and when he's got a shaved head and he's looking all zen or whatever, they're like, he's in the year 2065 and he's an astronaut, and it's like, where the fuck did you get any of that? Like that's not in the movie. Like it's not that kind of rigid and defined, and I don't know, I don't think time really has much to do with it. Like you said, it's kind of more of a book and kind of layers of that going on.
Yeah, it's just over analyzing it. Like if anything, the reason that if you're gonna believe that the bubble is real, the spaceship bubble, then it's just like he's been surviving off of that tree that they revived. What's the monkey's name? Samson or Donovan. So he's just been eating that tree for however many years, and now he's off to. And I saw another theory that the tree that's in the bubble with him is the tree that he planted the seed over her grave. She died, right. Which wouldn't make any sense because
like how would it? Yeah.
But he eats that tree in the bubble, and that's the one they give to Donovan. So it's like, I didn't like that theory, but it's still a cute thought.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of parallels where it'll be like him touching or kissing the tree, and it zooms in on the kind of the hairs of the tree, and then it'll be her neck looking the same.
Her neck.
And there's a lot of that going on. Yeah,
definitely. I don't know. I feel like that's crazy. I never heard other theories on it, but that doesn't make sense to me at all. I see it as different, I guess, timelines, not timelines. Well, yeah, I guess different parallel universes or whatever, or different timelines, because he's a conquistador, and then he's, a fucking scientist, and then he's like, I don't know, I see him more as like a spiritual person than anything, like at the very end as that, but he still's not letting go, like he just won't let go. And to like watching that movie like was frustrating for me for a while, because it's like, just let go, bro. Just let it go.
This was a kind of funny thing, and maybe it's a male female thing, or maybe it's also just David and I were younger when we first watched this movie than you were,
I feel like the first couple times I watched it for sure, and with David the same thing, we're like, oh man, Hugh Jackman, this is horrible what you're going through. Who wouldn't be upset in a situation like this? And the first time I watched it with you, Zochi, you were like, what the fuck is this asshole? Like, will you chill out and stop being like a dick to Isabella? Like,
Exactly. No, like it just I think because I grew up, my mom was very open about death, and like I always kind of like by the time I was about 13, every time my mom went into the hospital, I was like, I don't know if she's coming out. So I just had accepted it already. Like, and you know, she was always so sick, and the last thing I wanted to see her go through is just suffering through that. It's like, and if someone just wants to go, just let them go. Like, don't be selfish. Like, it might hurt you, but they need this, and you need to accept it so that they can go on peacefully, you know. And that's why it's just so frustrating for me to watch that movie sometimes, but it's such a beautiful, it's a beautiful movie. It's just, he's just such a like selfish like person and not understanding yet. So yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
his perspective on love is like very one-sided. Just like it's attached, it has to be right
It's
in
about him.
yeah. It's still sad though. I know, like,
It is.
I
So
think
sad.
what's sad is the third section, the astronaut section of it, because it's like by then it seems like he's accepted that he's got to finish the book, the journey, whatever you want to, the movie, like because at the end he like propels himself out of the spaceship and turns into space dust in with the exploding Shibalba or whatever. But I don't know. I think that kind of like that puts a seal on it. Like he's accepted it once he's like on the journey there, past the point where she keeps showing up and going, and he keeps freaking out, like, "Why would you leave me alone?"
Yeah.
She's like,
For
finish
real.
it. He's like, stop it.
What do you want?
I like that the moment of acceptance too, when he kind of just lets go and he's like, I'm gonna die. I love that he's like laughing as he says that, because there is a kind of like, I don't know, there's a silly element, there's that kind of thing that's present in a lot of literature where it's like the joke of death, where it's like you kind of have no choice but to like just stop taking it so serious, like just, oh yeah, I'm gonna die, shit, this is all crazy. Like, yeah, one thing I wanted to, I did a little bit of googling because I was kind of interested in
Hit up the Goog.
some Googin, for the etymology of the names. So in the conquistador section, his name is Tomás Verde, of course Spanish for green. So you know, which is often kind of emotions like envy, and it's to do with money and that kind of thing. And then in the kind of the more, I guess, like the less story, the more real part of the movie where he's a scientist, his name is Dr. Thomas or Tommy Creo. And I didn't know this, but Creo means I believe. Thomas as well is also kind of interesting. Biblical name, Thomas Aquinas, is a disciple of Jesus, and there's a part where he is called Doubting Thomas because he doesn't believe that Jesus has come back from the dead until Jesus shows up and literally shows him, like, here's the holes in my hand and all that stuff. That's a whole story. But the reason that he takes seeing proof to believe is that Thomas Aquinas represents the understanding faculty of man, like scientific knowledge, our ability to be knowledgeable about things.
Interesting.
Yeah, Isabella comes from a Hebrew name, Elisheba, which means God is perfection, or God is my oath, and then it was kind of adapted later with the Bella, meaning beautiful. And then this is the one that really blew my mind. Donovan, the name of the chimp that they, or the monkey that they get the thing out of, the name Donovan means brown-haired chieftain. And of course, the chieftain is the one in the Conquistador timeline who kills him with the flaming sword, which was like, so the killing him with the flaming sword and the storyline part of it is what leads him to that kind of enlightenment, kind of like realization. And then also the breakthrough scientifically comes from the kind of the analog for that character. I was like, that's so cool.
Dude, that's bizarre.
Yeah,
Kind of blew my mind.
That symbolism side of it is crazy when you dive deep into it. There's, like, off the top of my head, I can think of like 3 scenes where there's crosses, but I'm sure there's like 50 plus moments where there's crosses. And like my favorite is the elevator, and then when she leaves after she's like, it's the first snow, and he's like, leave me alone. when she walks out the door and it's like really bright, and she walks into the white light, which there's also some symbolism on what the white light means, that they consistently either are looking at it, or like when she's the queen and reveals herself, she's like, you know, flushed by the white light. But as the door closes, it like perfectly makes a cross as it closes and then disappears right when the doors close.
I didn't notice that. Yeah.
Wow.
Go
I
back
didn't
and check
notice
that
that
scene
either.
out. It's really cool. But
The
that's
shot
crazy about the
composition
names.
is crazy. Like, I love all that.
I knew his name was Tommy. I knew this astronaut was Tommy Creo. I didn't know Creo was like where that came from though.
I had no idea. I never thought about it until I watched it.
How's it spelled? Creo?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, creo means I believe. Yeah.
Because they go like, Dr. Creo, we're coming to the thing, and I was like, oh, why is that in there? They didn't like. I realized
crazy.
like, oh yeah, nothing is in here by accident. Like,
That's true.
It's very purposeful. All the stuff in this movie.
I feel like I'm gonna have to watch it another time, because it's like I did like the second time I watched it, it really solidified everything for me. But I feel like there's still so much to find in that movie.
Yeah, you have to look up those things first, and
Yeah.
then like have it. It's like when you are looking for a car and like gonna buy a car, and all of a sudden you start seeing that car everywhere you go. Like it's the same thing. It's like, oh, I'm gonna look for crosses this time, and then it's like, I need to write this shit down because there's like so many moments of crosses. But
and also like the black and white thing, kind of dealing with duality. So when they first find that, when he goes like, bring up that compound from that tree from Guatemala, like bring that up and we'll mix that with Donovan. And one of the things that he says is, picture a man and a woman, like in intercourse with the woman on top. It's like a mirror, complementary domains, which is of course yin yang. And throughout the movie, Hugh Jackman. Hi, Frankie. Doing a podcast.
I don't know what the fuck.
But yeah, throughout the movie, Hugh Jackman's wearing black, and Rachel Weisz is wearing white the whole time, which is a reversal of the yin yang, because typically white is yang, male, and black is female, yin. But it kind of fits more to, like, with Western culture, to have him in black and her in white. And then that pattern is also like on the floor of the Queen's like palace area or whatever. There's like a circle that's like black, white stripes going all the way around it, and that floor pattern is the same as in the hospital, and like so many like parallel shots like that. It's so cool.
Yeah, a lot of parallel shots. I love that, because they make it pretty obvious, but like subtle at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder, the ring has always been kind of a mystery to me.
Yeah, exactly. I still don't know what
the connection is to. I mean, obviously, real world, he needs to lose it so that there can be a connection that Tommy Creo doctor and Tommy Creo astronaut are the same person, because he has the tattoo and he's just extended on that tattoo. Because and it's the same exact. He's using the pen that she got him as his whatever present way later in the bubble, but it's just like it's all cracked and broken as if it's, you know, been used for however many.
Right.
But I wonder like where his ring actually went, or what the hell, or if they just kind of flew over that and were like, doesn't really matter.
He put it on at the very end though, right?
Yeah, but there's no connection of that, like from losing it in when he's like going to wash his hands before surgery to that moment. It's like it's very blurry how that happens. Like
I think when he puts it back on at the end, that's probably my least favorite shot in the movie. When he looks kind of like Jesus and he's got the white on and he's doing the Lord of the Rings thing where he's slowly putting it on, and it's like
it's like how slow can you put on a ring?
For real, like it's the kind of thing that only makes sense if you're doing it for the camera, and otherwise it's like, why would you be like
right?
Like can't do it. Yeah, and then also like another symbolism thing, I'm not sure if they meant it, but like all of the way he does his tattoos is like kind of the same thing as how trees show their age when you cut them, and
I'm
they have
sure
rings.
They meant it. Yeah, so
you know?
cool.
So it's like however many cycles or whatever he's going through, however he's telling time, he like puts another ring on himself, which is like he's like the tree at that point. But
Yeah.
I'm still thinking about the ring. But then, you know what I realized? He doesn't find his ring in that second timeline when he's a scientist. He just draws one on. So I'm like,
Well, yeah, he only finds it when he's like bald and in the Zen
because
thing, which
the thing
could
is
be all
like,
in his head.
also as a scientist, he never accepted death. He still didn't accept it. Even after she died, he didn't really accept it. You know what I
well,
mean?
yeah,
Well,
he doesn't
until
even
the
look
end.
at it as acceptance or not accepting. It's not even that. Like he looks at it as a cold. Like it is something that
A disease.
has a vaccine that we can fix. And that's the last thing that you hear Tommy Creo say is like, death is a disease like any other, and I'm gonna find the cure or whatever. And then the next time that's the last you see Dr. Tommy. Like,
Well, no, you see him at the end again. So there's a little bit where they do a repeat of the part where she's like, "It's the last snow, come walk with me."
oh
And he
yeah,
goes
no,
and
I
walks
just
with
mean
her.
timeline wise.
Yeah, I don't think he actually goes and walks with her. I think he rewrote the story to have him walk with her because he realized, shit, I should have done that.
Yeah.
And then you see him when he buries the thing. That's like the last thing he does is bury the thing by her grave. And I think that's when he's kind of I think all of the stuff in his head where he's lived immortal and he's at the tree, I think all of that I think all of that is in his head. I think it's his spiritual journey. And I think what really happens is he storms off after the funeral because he's being all like, Ellen Burstyn is giving that cool speech, and he's like, I can't even deal with it. It's a disease like any other. And then I think he comes back, buries the thing, and realizes, and that's when he kind of finishes the story and writes the new ending.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's like timeline wise, they all of a sudden start to do flashbacks there, so it's confusing as to order of things. What is the very last thing that he does? But yeah, planting the seed for sure. I just wonder, like, that's the other thing is like asking what is real in it, like, because a lot of people think that Doctor and Space Guy is like that's an actual real, like that's real, that actually happened, and then that the Conquistador part is the book, and like that's how some people split it up, and then obviously other people think that like his spiritual journey is just all in his head and all that, and I don't know, and then other people think that the whole thing is the book, and that none of it is actually real, but who knows?
It's interesting. I think I definitely interpret it more as like the Doctor stuff. It's not. I don't think the Doctor stuff is all real. I think that's the closest to real that we get in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the stuff with him with the tree and all of that. I think that's like a metaphor for his spiritual journey. And then the Conquistador thing, I guess you can interpret it as reincarnation and literal that way, or as just the story in the book, or kind of either or. That's something that's really I find really interesting about just like mythology in general, is that the way they present stuff is this is all for real, but there's kind of a nod and a wink in it where some of it's not for real and they're not going to tell you which parts, and that's like that can be really confusing, but it can also be kind of cool and exciting.
Well, yeah, it leaves a lot of room for interpretation for everybody. I think that's how it's supposed to be. It's like not really one set thing. Maybe the creator in mind had something set, but he kind of left it ambiguous so everyone could take their piece from it, you know? And I think it all across the board gives a pretty clear message to everybody, you know, in the sense of like, just let go and allow it to be.
Yeah. You know what I also thought was kind of interesting? So in the beginning, before the movie starts, there's a quote, and it's from Genesis 3:24. It's, "Therefore the Lord God banished Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden and placed a flaming sword to protect the tree of life." Now, he puts the sword in, it reveals in the other verses of that chapter, he gives the sword to a cherub, which is an angel that's represented as a child, which is kind of interesting, like, because I think there's something inherently, like, when you're a very small child, it's like you don't have the self-awareness to be adapting who you are. You just kind of are who you are. And that's kind of interesting. But then, so with the whole Adam and Eve thing, there's the whole serpent, and that kind of iconography of the serpent as the planting the seed of doubt, going like, hey, why don't you eat the fruit from that tree? Come on, it's totally fine. interesting enough, in Mayan mythology, so like I actually learned about this in my anthropology of religion course. There's a sarcophagus that they uncovered from a Mayan lord called Lord Pakal, and it depicts him falling into the jaws of a serpent that represents the underworld. So in one mythology, you've got a serpent representing like maybe deception or like ego and wanting to like, no, you should know stuff, you know better. And then in the other one, you have a serpent representing the underworld. And I thought that was kind of cool how they merged those.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know about the serpent in Mayan mythology. It's very significant in that sense. And that's true. Like, well, because I don't really know much about like Christianity or anything, I'm just kind of like never know about it. So when I hear like the connection, it's kind of cool.
Well, I also I like the way they include, because so much of it is kind of, they use Mayan mythology, and Mayans are interesting because they're very similar to like Hindus and Buddhists, because they all view time as cyclical, where it's like Shaboba is expanding, explodes, and then restarts. So it's a rebirth cycle, similar to samsara in Hinduism, where it's reincarnation and that idea. But then they keep coming back, like David said, they keep coming back to a cross, and they keep coming back to Christianity. And I think part of that is because Christianity, because of the way it influenced Western thought is so much about like concrete knowledge, what you can prove, and that's it. And who do they represent as the main person in Christianity in this? The Inquisitor from the Inquisition. And of course, Inquisition means investigation, like an intense interrogation. So it's literally someone who, and some of the stuff he says, the Inquisitor says like, our bodies are prisons for our souls, death frees every soul. And then at the same, he's talking about death freeing your soul from the imprisonment of the body and bodily pain and all that stuff and bodily desires. But then at the same time, he also is saying, and all you guys are going to go to hell, and the queen's going to go to hell, and I'm going to kill all of you. And he's self-flagellating and doing all this like masturbatory stuff. And so it's kind of funny because it's like, without really even addressing it, they kind of did address like, yeah, Christianity is almost there, but then it's just like they take a hard left turn towards like hypocrisy and like just hardline stuff.
Well, yeah, and then that character is supposed to represent that side of Tommy Creo, like in real life.
That totally makes sense.
What like the death part of it is like will free you, but it sends you to a bad place. And that's like connected to the Dr. Tommy and being like not being able to. I can't remember what I read on that, like who the Inquisitor of all the interpretations, who he's connected to or who he's supposed to like, like the Alice in Wonderland, who's the character, who is this character representing in real life?
That kind of makes sense though, that it's like the inquisitive kind of side of him, that's just like not listening and just like, no, I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah, that does make me think of the scene though that you were talking about. It was funny, I hadn't noticed, but he like wipes the blood all over the map, and then he just like rolls it right up, and like and the blood hasn't even dried yet. And you would like, so there's just like blood everywhere on that map.
So
now,
just
like,
ruined that map, like.
So funny. I didn't know. I was looking at the person who wrote the soundtrack, Clint Mansell, I think. He did Black Swan.
Oh, wow. Well, it's the same director.
And Requiem for a Dream too, which is the same director. And then he also did an episode of Black Mirror, the San Junipero one, where they're like in that virtual reality, like post-death world.
That was a weird one.
I didn't watch that one. I skipped it. I got bored.
Yeah,
I was 10 minutes in. I'm like, next.
I haven't seen it more than once. And when I watched it, somebody was like, you should watch this episode. It wasn't like I, went into... Yeah. It's one of my least favorite Black Mirror episodes for sure. But the soundtrack in The Fountain is just, it's really, really beautiful. I also like how they use it for themes too. When there's like similar conversations going on between the three worlds or similar scenes, the same soundtrack will come in. Which is cool because you think like that the guy, like they're just separate, sitting apart in two different rooms, but it's like most of the composers for soundtracks are like one of the first people on the job. Like after all of the like crew and people set up things, it's like composers right there with the director working just as important with directors that care about good soundtracks. And
100%.
I think that makes a movie like this, you know, and sound
Definitely.
definitely makes. I love those scenes where they're like put, you know, funny music to a horror scene, and it just like you're like, okay, so this is really bad acting, and the music made this movie. Okay, right? Like,
Yeah, it really
that's about
does.
it.
I
That's
love
why
that,
that
like,
movie,
yeah, that main theme that kind of keeps coming back. The like, da-na-na-na, like, I can't do it right, but yeah, that
Pop
part
off
was.
Queen.
But and I love the use of sound, like, so the scene where she does a little exposition to the audience, I mean to Hugh Jackman, when she's like, so here I'm gonna restate the myth of the Mayan first father who becomes the tree of life and sacrifices himself.
The
So
museum or whatever.
museum,
Hmm.
there's a sign, and the museum exhibit is divine words, which is interesting because you know, the first I think the first line in the Bible is like, in the beginning there was the word, and that's kind of referring to the fact that religion, it's all comes from oral tradition, and a lot of the times in sacrifices it's like you have a mantra or something like that, where it's honestly half the time it doesn't really matter what you're saying, it's the fact that everyone can repeat it, and there's a hypnotic quality to everyone saying the same kind of thing. And then there's a scene where he leaves the hospital, where Izzy's trying to talk to him about death, and he's like, stop it, and he leaves, and then it's quiet, it's absolutely quiet as he's walking down the street, which is a cool way of kind of showing that he's in his head, he's not paying attention, and then it comes back in with traffic as he almost steps into traffic. When he's walking by, he passes a scaffolding, and on the wall, you know how there'll be lots of posters on the wall on scaffoldings, it's kind of broken up, but if you actually look closely, the posters on the wall are advertisements for the Divine Words
Museum
museum exhibit.
exhibit.
So while he's walking by in silence and kind of just not looking, right there behind him, he's walking by ignoring the Divine Words again, which I thought was like, that's super interesting symbology. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't like the same as the moments where it's like, you know, themes and an actual soundtrack, but it was still a point where like sound editing was so important to creating that whole like feeling. It was really cool.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really important. Like soundtracks in movies to me are very important because that really solidifies the moment for you. And I think it really makes it more memorable in that sense. Like it really makes you feel something, you know? I feel like, and I think maybe as dancers, we connect with music a little differently and it's a little more powerful for us. But
For sure.
I think, because I think like maybe the average person wouldn't watch a movie and be like, oh, the soundtrack though, you know?
yeah. Well, and then it like you can look at things rhythmically, like, oh, that scene is cutting with the rhythm of this music, or you know, like it's the editing of like who the focus of the camera on is, like kind of going in waves with the tempo that the soundtrack is on right now, which I think is really fun. I would like to be able to do something like that one day, like
Oh, dude, you'd be perfect
write
for that.
soundtracks.
You could totally do
That'd be
that.
so fun.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Cool as hell.
Oh, you know, it was another cool thing, and it's kind of, I didn't notice it until this time again. It was like, as much as it's like I had to pause a lot, or I wasn't, there were a few scenes where I was kind of writing probably more than I was even getting to just enjoy and take in. Taking notes like really helped because I noticed way more stuff. So when they get the Franciscan guy who's the Breaking Bad, the dude with the bell, that actor. When he brings in and the guide for the map, and then also the key to the I guess the indicator that the Mayans left, like pointing to the hidden temple, is a dagger, which they say death is the road to awe. And when he's distracted by the flaming sword, the guy stabs him with a little dagger. So I think it's kind of funny that then also the map that leads them there is a dagger itself. And then also in the dagger, there's the thing in the map with the dagger is that there's 3 holes in it, set up like a kind of triangle, which is interesting because it's both like Christian ideology, because you have the Trinity, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, but then also there's kind of more of a psychedelic thing to it, where it's your 2 eyes and your 3rd eye make up that Trinity as well, and it's also the shape of a pyramid, which he's scaling. And it was like, that fit together so well. Like,
So many things.
Yeah, no, I actually, you made me think of another one that I can't believe I left out. There's 3 really cool shots, and I will have to look it up, but you mentioned it, and the first time you see it is like, they're riding on the horses, and the shot starts, the camera is upside down, and as the feet pass where the camera is and it becomes perpendicular, the camera pulls up. But not only is that shot cool, it happens 3 specific times when Tommy is off to go do something. So he's like Tommy Verde is on the horses with his dudes, and then he's going off to, like, you know, whatever, find the Inquisitor or kill him.
Conquest, yeah.
And then it's like when he opens the hospital doors, the same shot happens when he's going to, I can't remember what exactly he's doing there. And then the same thing happens with the spaceship where, like, I think one of the first shots of the spaceship is the bubble, like, doing the same exact thing, which is like,
That's true.
I love that.
The two with Dr. Creo and with Tomas Verde, I didn't notice that, but you're right. They do the same thing, that kind of upside down flipping, which is cool just as a shot, and also cool that they paralleled. But then it's also interesting because it's like a flip, you know, indicating the flipping of your perspective, and that whole idea of, like, quote unquote the other side, which you hear in all kinds of art. Like, one thing that was interesting in the first scene when they're going through with the conquistador, and he's got his 2 dudes behind him, which I think is funny that later you find out they're only there because he was like, "I'll kill you, or you can come with me," and they're like,
Right.
"I'll go with you."
That's funny.
But when he goes, "It's a trap," and they go, "What do we do?" And he goes, "We break through," which immediately made me think of, like, break on through to the other side, like that whole kind of imagery. And then it's also kind of funny that when they face the pagans, those 2 are cowardly, and they see death in front of them. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna die fighting these dudes." They run away and are instantly killed. And he's like, "No, not today. I'm gonna go." And even though that's kind of, there's the whole Western conquistador, like, not accepting death, don't think about it, stop, leave me alone thing to that. They at least respect that he has the cojones, that he's got some bravery to him, that he's like, "All right, let's go." And they're like, "Okay, all right, we'll go up the pyramid then, here you go." And I thought that was kind of interesting too, where it's like, not only is it saying to let go, it's also saying, like, cowardice is not going to help. Like, you know, even if you even if you should let go instead of pushing and fighting is still better than running away. And I thought that was kind of interesting, like, message right in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, I just realized that there's Tommy Verde, like, at the end, once he gets into the garden of whatever, he's like extremely greedy with that white pus stuff. Like,
Yeah.
once he sees what it does to his wound, he's like up in it, like, you know, going hard. And then all of a sudden it takes over him, and that's when he like green
Sprouts
plants come out of his body, which I didn't real until you said that his last name was
Verde.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, also that scene, I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot about that.
I love that scene. That's my favorite scene, like the whole movie.
He's like,
Well, like, no, him drinking the sap and then turning into what eternal life is, which is just the earth, you know, just like,
Yeah.
it just, like, I love that part.
And
so
what's also
symbolic.
cool is, like, so, and I didn't think of it this way until I saw, like, an article that someone wrote about it, and what they were saying was that Izzy had written a tentative ending where he goes up there, the chieftain says, "Death is the road to awe," he distracts him, stabs him with a dagger, and then just kills him. And then when Tommy writes the story and he finishes the story, he writes it the new way where the guy spares him, and then he's let through, and then his character is then greedy and pays the comeuppance for his greed and his vanity and his singular focus, which is cool because he's, like, gained self-awareness where he's realized, like, oh god, this is what I was doing. But then also, so like you said, he becomes the tree, right? He becomes first father where it grows out of him. So the whole movie, we're getting these shots where it's the tree, Izzy, tree, Izzy. He's talking to the tree as if it's Izzy. He's like, "I just need to take a little bit more from you. Like, you'll live again, and then I will live," and blah, blah, blah. But she's not the tree. He is, because at the end, he grows into the tree, which I think is symbolic of the fact that every time he's saying, "Don't leave me. I want you to live. I want you to live." And when he's in love with her, really what it is him grappling with his love of himself and his fear of his own death. He's sad that she's going to die because he's going to be alone.
He's going to die.
And which is kind of interesting because we think of love as so selfless, but it's kind of like, no, it's selfish, dog. Like,
yeah, it is in a sense.
well, yeah, I mean, just when it's just how we do humans do it now. Well, most of us, where it's like I own you, you own me. We don't get anyone else, and if you leave me, I'm mad, and like that whole
Possessive.
thing. But it's very. Did you know that Brad Pitt was supposed to was the original casted guy for it? It was Brad Pitt and some other lady, and the budget got chopped in half, so they had to come back with Hugh Jackman, and I'm really happy that happened because I think they did.
Hugh Jackman's great. I don't know why he wasn't first pick. Fucking Brad Pitt. Are you serious?
I don't know if he was
at the time. He wasn't. I mean, it just didn't pop.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if that was before X-Men or after, but if it was after, it was only after one of them. Like he wasn't a household name yet.
I think he was a little. He looks a little older in the Fountain than he does in the first X-Men, but
yeah, I think that might have been 99 or 2001 or something.
That could just be the hair and the makeup, though, because they put him in a white wife beater and chops on his.
I think Brad Pitt would have been okay as the doctor part. I cannot see him being a good conquistador, or looking good as a bald Zen dude. Like I just don't.
No.
I don't see that.
Maybe that's why Brad Pitt didn't take the role. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe, yeah. I'll
have to look up who the girl was. Another weird thing that I get how it fits spiritually and everything, but I just think it's strange that they just cut to Tai Chi in the stars, on a shadow.
And the guy's don't come back to that. Yeah.
And then there's no is that what he does in his free time? Like he just does Tai Chi in the bubble and
probably
when he's not crying or.
Well, part of it, I don't. Again, they don't. I wish they'd kind of. Maybe there's a scene that they had to cut where it returns to that or something. The way I thought about it this time is that it's like, okay, he's doing Tai Chi, he's doing the rings around the thing, he's bald, he's wearing the Zen outfit, he's meditating, he's doing all this stuff, but he's still not there. He's still not letting go. So he's not as Zen as he thinks he's being. And maybe that's where they were going with it, but again, they don't really come back to it. It's just like a kind of cool Karate Kid shot for a second where he's doing Tai Chi, and you're like, all right, Hugh Jackman, I see you with your Tai Chi.
And he's kind of got superpowers in the bubble as well, which I guess you could attribute to I read one article that said that how many years is it? It's supposed to be 2055 or?
Well, they don't say. It says that in the trailer, but in the movie,
I can't remember what it said in the article, but basically it was the idea that Tommy Creo and the Doctor are the same guy,
right?
And that he's been surviving with that bark, and that bubble is what spacecraft and technology is in 20 whatever,
right?
And so I guess you could attribute the fact that he can Superman jump into a crouch position on the top of the tree to the atmosphere in the bubble, but it's also kind of interesting that he's got the ability to basically fly around and jump really high and propel himself out of the bubble when he wants to.
See, I took that all way less literally. I just took that as it's because it's a spiritual dreamscape or something. I also like that he climbs the tree before he propels himself up to be with the rotating and all the music swelling and stuff at the end. Because there's something it reminded me of the Peter Pan musical. There's a whole song where they're like, and if it should be beneath my dignity to climb a tree, I'll never grow up, never grow up. And I thought that was kind of interesting because it's as we get older, we get stuffy and we're like, I don't want to climb trees and run about and stuff. And so I like that when he stops taking things so seriously and he goes, I'm gonna die. He climbs up a tree and then leaps and does all this kind of this active stuff that really we want to be doing, but we kind of suppress because we're like, no, I'm a person with a tie and I'm very serious.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. People take shit too seriously in general.
You could connect it any way. I don't look at it literally either, but I could imagine if you had to connect a scene to solidify the storyline. Imagine there's another scene that's it's 2065 and there's a bubble that closes on the tree. They're down in South America. Tommy Creo hops in, it propels into space. We're cool. Oh wait, so that's some technology. Or you could just I wonder what other things you could do to fan theories to.
It would also be cool to see deleted scenes to see because I bet a lot of these things that seem kind of vague, they might have been kind of more directly mapped out, and then they just kind of cut it to make it more vague or to save time or whatever.
How long is the movie on its own?
It's only an hour and a half or like something like that. It's not very long.
I feel like they could have made it 2.
Yeah, but I feel like it does, because so many of the shots are very slow and methodical and purposeful. By the end of it, you're kind of like, wow, this has been a while. Like, it feels like an epic.
Right, it's true.
But it doesn't really have the length of an epic.
No, I was actually surprised when we watched it the most recent time, because I was on my phone for the majority of it, but once it was over, I was like, it has not been that long. I was like, oh, wow. But it's just the story. It's just like got so much packed in there. Makes you think a lot more than a normal movie would as well.
True. It's very stimulating.
Oh, yeah. It's also like there was a funny, or not funny, but just kind of a cool thing that I only noticed this time. But it was very, very small, but I thought it was just a kind of a good example of how Darron Arronofsky, the director, was purposeful even with small things like extras. So when Izzy dies and he's walking out distraught and it's and not really accepting it, and then of course, like, he finds out that, like, oh, after she's dead we find out we can cure cancer, and you're like, what the fuck, dude? At that moment, a couple of nurses bring an empty gurney by, which is just such a simple thing for extras to be doing to set the scene for a hospital. But I thought that was really interesting because they weren't going towards her room, they were going to another room. So either someone's died and they're bringing in a new bed, or they're bringing this in to move someone. And that was kind of a cool little like indicator of there's other people going through other stuff in this world. It's not just these two people in their little story. There's others besides you, which also kind of brings you to that, hey, stop taking your life so seriously. Like, we're all going to die. You're not special. And I don't know how on purpose that was, but I feel like it's all so, like, symbolically put together.
Oh, it has to be 100% on purpose. The extras didn't just decide, like, okay, ready, set, go.
Yeah,
like,
no, Gurney's going to go by the foreground.
Yeah, no, they had a cue, they had a mark, that they had timing that they had to follow. So I'm sure that maybe they didn't mean, like, I'm sure it was just like, let's fill this scene with hospital stuff. But you can definitely interpret it as, like, there is a world here. It's not just
because anybody else could have been walking by, just a nurse by herself, a doctor, right. You know what I mean? But, nurses with a gurney or whatever, that's a whole different meaning.
Let's confuse them more with a second long shot.
Right?
Everything.
That's also one of those things, like, if you spent time in hospitals, this is kind of like, with his other movie, Black Swan, dancers always have a problem with it because we know the dance world inside out. So we're like, this doesn't... The hell? Why is Mila Kunis walking in late to rehearsal with her hair down? That would not be okay. Like, get out of here. But then, but in a similar kind of way, there were a couple of shots where I was like, so she's not connected to like a million wires right now? Get the fuck out. Like, there's like, he wouldn't be able to just be chilling on the bed like that. There'd be all kinds of crap that they didn't, it's kind of cleaned up version of a hospital. But although, for the most part, it's pretty realistic. But
yeah, true that. And also there's always beeping in a fucking hospital room, which pisses me off. But like, that shit has traumatized me at this point. Every time I go into a hospital and I'm like, oh my God, the beeping.
Yeah, dude. I remember I was in a McDonald's and there was like, I don't know. It was probably like their ice cream machine was broken or something, but it was making a beeping that was like similar to a hospital sound. And I remember it like freaked me out. I didn't have like a full-on panic attack, but it was definitely like, I was like, I need to get out of here. I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I experience with those kind of beeping sounds now.
Yeah, it's wild.
Hate it. What else did you find in the movie? Do you have any more on your notes, or did you write?
That's most of my notes. Yeah, a lot of it is just like interesting lines. Like I like when Lillian, the older friend, says that. Is talking about how Izzy found such peace at the end, and she talks about how most of us go out the way we come into the world, kicking and screaming. I just thought that was kind of cool.
I love that part.
Yeah. The last words that Izzy wrote in her book are all he could see was death. And in the literal sense, it's talking about the conquistador, and all he's looking at is this chieftain about to cut him down. But the way I kind of took it is that when you don't think about death, death is blocking you from living your life. And only when you think about it and you put the words to it and you give a little bit of energy to it, can you get past it. And it's that kind of paradox where it's like, the more you try not to have something be a part of your life, the more a part of your life it's going to be, because it's like you're not addressing the problem, you know.
Yeah, just like how we talked about, I guess earlier, how when you try not to make something your focus, it ends up being your only focus.
Exactly. I think there's some kind of truth to that. Whatever you don't want to look at is all you end up seeing, and there's a weird parallel there.
For sure. Honestly, too, I don't know if this happens to you guys, but like when I think about death, like a lot of the times it's always been like really positive, but sometimes if I'm in a bad headspace and I think about death, I think about all the bad things, I think about the ways I could die, like instead of just being like, when I get there, I will deal with it, I start like trying to plan ahead. And that's how like my anxiety comes up and stuff like that. But for the most part, like I have a healthy like thought about death. Like it just is the next thing, like it's gonna happen, whatever. Just I don't know.
Yeah, I think the idea of it being gone but doesn't bother me, like in a selfish way. Obviously your family and everybody else around is what you leave behind, but for me it's just the pain part of it. It's like, what pain do you have, like what horrifying pain am I going to go through before I'm at that, before I'm dead. And I think that's what freaks most people out, is not the idea of being gone, but it's like, you have to go through something to get there that's going to probably be the worst thing you've ever experienced. Hopefully you go in your sleep, or
Right.
I think I used to be afraid of like someone murdering me. Now I'm much more afraid of someone not murdering me. So someone like kidnapping me for other purposes,
torturing you,
you get sold into the sex trade, whatever it is. Like the idea of the suffering being prolonged is way worse than death. But something kind of interesting that you reminded me of is like, it is to do with the way we perceive time, because in the moment, suffering isn't like, it's bad, but you have no choice but to kind of let go and accept it and go with it. I think about like when I was going through a lot of medical stuff, and it was a lot of conversations with doctors where they're like, hey, so here's your, you're at 90% chance of not surviving, or here's this thing, or here you're on this drug now, and this is an IV drip that we only give to people when they're like hanging by a thread, just FYI. When you're having those kind of conversations, you're very, very calm. I was very I was like, oh yeah, okay, all right, cool, just take it day by day. It was like, what's for lunch? This is the hospital food? Damn, I'm gonna enjoy this. Like you kind of are in a place where you're in the present. It's only after I was out of the hospital for a long time and had a semblance of health come back that now death freaks me out again, and the idea of getting sick freaks me out. Before it was like, oh well, I am sick, so I'll just deal with it. Whereas now that I feel kind of healthy, the idea of like, oh no, what's that? I feel my heartbeat. I don't like being aware. I don't, if you have headphones in but no music playing, I don't like hearing my own heartbeat, because now it freaks me out because I've got space from it. And the same thing with like violent stuff. I got mugged, and when I was getting mugged, I wasn't really that scared. I was thinking about like, okay, protect your head, do this, do that, get through it. But it was just, you're just in the moment, you're just kind of, you're in shock and you're just dealing with it. It's only afterwards that now it left me with anxiety and stuff. And it's kind of interesting that that paradox where it's like you need space to have fear.
That is true.
How you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's also like the amount you've experienced something, like you could say like the same thing. A lot of the emotional trip that you go through right before you are attacked, or right before you're about to get in a fight, is very similar to the same emotion you experience right before you step on stage to perform. And like a very similar thing happens where, when you step off stage and you say like, I don't remember doing any of, like you're like, I don't know how that pirouette went or how this went. I think that like slowly over time for me, that happens less and less. I walk off stage now and I'm like, I know everything that happened, what went wrong. There's no like zone out anymore. So I feel like, that's the biggest thing that causes that anxiety when you're attacked or when something like that happens to you, is afterwards, you don't really know what it looked like or what happened.
Right.
It was
it's
just
blurry.
this like
Yeah.
bustling like
It's
crazy.
like autopilot.
Yeah, it's like
You're
it's
just
like a
going on
blackout memory.
autopilot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's
you
really
can stand there and
interesting.
go, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, then all of a sudden it's over, and you're like, what just happened?
Dude, the stage analogy is such a good one because it is when you're backstage before a show, you got that nervous energy, and then once you're on, you just embody the character, and you just do your steps, and you don't really, there's not really
I
the
miss
same
that.
nervousness as when you started. That is kind of funny how it's like, yeah, anticipation is actually worse than the moment, which is wild.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, and then it always feels like once you're up on stage, like for me, I was no longer nervous. I was only nervous the moment before, and then once I'm on stage, I'm fine. And I like the crazy thing is I always felt that nervousness, that anxiety always made me perform better. Because the more nervous I was before I went on stage, the better I performed. Always. I don't know why.
That's interesting. Well, it's also it's. Oh, sorry. No, go.
I found I had to calm that nervous energy down because I put too much energy into things anyway, especially within ballet. It's like it should be like 80% force and 20% finesse, and it's really easy to go into a step or a movement and just throw all your force into it. And so if like I go on stage and I'm pumped, things aren't going to work. I have to be like, I'm going to put in 50% of my normal energy, and then things seem to happen better. But if I'm like, here we go, I think the scariest thing for me, but beyond like being on the side of stage and that emotion, is like when you go on stage and you have to wait on stage and your like solo's about to come up, and you're standing there like having to be a peasant, and you know like in 2 minutes that you're gonna have to dance, and you can't like you can't do high knees or like shake your hands or so you're just standing there and like it's creeping up and creeping up and creeping up, and like I think that's even scarier when like you're in the moment and you that composure like that MMA fighters have to have like once they're in the cage and they're like, okay, I can't like look too nervous now because then my opponent will know that I'm nervous.
Well, that's interesting. Like, yeah, I 100% agree. And it's funny with MMA too. Whenever we've watched fights, I always find it fun with whoever you're with, and it doesn't have to be actual gambling, but just to kind of go through the motions of gambling, where you go, who do you think's gonna win? Who do you think's gonna win? What I always go with is, first of all, like, whoever's bigger doesn't matter to me. Whoever's shredded, I'm like, whoever's like compact, where all of their muscles are together, they move like an animal, where it's not just their arm moving, their whole body moves with them. So there's that. Failing that, what I go on is movement. The dude who's like, and like bouncing around and stuff, he's gonna lose. The guy who's just standing there like, oh, we're gonna fight, okay, wins every time. It's crazy like how, and I used to do that where I thought that I needed to work myself up for stage. So when I was doing guestings where I was doing a bigger role than maybe I was used to, I used to have like, I had a playlist, like a hype playlist. I got Eminem going on, like, well, if you had one moment, one opportunity, like. And that it was always the worst performances when I did that. It was always better when there was no time to do that, and it was just calm energy and just kind of like, okay, what am I doing? I'm gonna do it. It's such a cool analogy because that comes back to a very spiritual idea, where it's like in Hinduism and in Buddhism, there's the theatrical conception of the universe, and you've got Shakespeare, like all the world's a stage and all the people merely players, and that way of looking at it is I find that so interesting, and that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, one time I finally figured out what my pre-stage routine was going to be. It had to do with the lighting on the stage that I had to dance in. Like it was the darkest I've ever danced in light-wise on stage, and it screwed with my vision. And you know how much like you learn that like later and later on that like your vision is so huge in dancing on stage, and the transition from studio to stage, because you go from a reflection of yourself in a well-lit room to a black abyss with really bright lights on the side of you. And
spotting is way harder.
But now I stand on the side of stage and I close my eyes, or I'll stand as close as I can to a curtain with my eyes open and just like try to do that. And the first time I did that and I did some breathing exercises, I was on stage, and for a little while there, I forgot that there were people in the audience. It was really strange. And then halfway through, I had this panic of like, oh my God, people are watching. What have you been doing? Like, you've probably just been screwing around. And then I like took back over and was like, no, you've been fine. Just keep going. And, like, that release was such a cool experience.
Let go. Like that's
Yeah.
a big thing. Like once you get on there, you just kind of let go and you got to trust yourself,
Oh
because
yeah, so hard.
honestly, like you have the technique, and I'm sure like you can perform once you're on stage. It's all, it's almost like another being takes over, like another part of you just kind of takes over. That I love that. I miss that feeling of like dancing on stage and just being able to really let go, because I like would try to stress so much when I was younger, like what I looked like on stage, and then I would mess up. I'd mess up all the time if I did that. But once I was just like, you know yourself, you know the steps, you're fine, your technique's good, just do it. And then it would always come out great when I would do that. But once I start overthinking it and like, you hype yourself up or you whatever, overthink shit, it just doesn't go right.
It's funny, that reminds me
And that's
of,
for everything.
Oh, 100%. Which is why it's like, it's such a good analogy, because the stage thing translates to just like, okay, so life is a performance, and you are an actor in it. But then also that kind of reminded me, I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie or read the books, like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. It's just like it's kind of Rick and Morty-esque. It's kind of a comedy, and it's a lot of like sci-fi stuff, but a lot of like weird philosophy and just like, humor and stuff. But there's the main character at one point learns how to like fly. And the trick to flying in the books is that you have to throw yourself at the floor and miss. So you can't do it consciously. What has to happen is you throw yourself at the floor, and then right as you're doing that, you get distracted by something, and then suddenly you're flying. And I thought that was such a cool idea, because it's that so many of the things we try to do, even spiritual pursuits like yoga or meditation or something, it's about raising your awareness and focusing and what can I do with my control. But then ultimately when you do stuff, it's kind of like finding a way to let go of that and be instinctual and just like go with it. And that's super fascinating to me.
Yeah, paralysis by analysis. When you like, I can sit there and play something on the piano or guitar that I've played by myself 1,000 times, and then the second that you're like, "Hey, Dad, listen to this song," your like thumbs turn into wooden blocks and
Right.
paralysis by
I haven't played piano in a long time, but I used to have that where I would kind of almost black out when I was playing piano, and where I wasn't reading the music anymore, and I wasn't really looking at my hands. I was just kind of playing. And then if I would snap out of that, then I would mess up, and then I'd be like, where am I on the page? I don't know where I am in the song. And so it's like, it's that weird thing where you kind of have to get into the trance of it.
Yeah, I remember like when my mom would play the guitar, I'd ask her, I'm like, teach me, how do you do this? She goes, I can't teach you. My fingers just do this. She goes, you have to watch me. So that's how I learned how to like play guitar, was just by watching people's hands. And then, same thing when I do it now, I start thinking about the chords. Like, say, I just recently started playing again after like 2 or 3 years of like not playing. And I was able to pick up the guitar and just play like a few songs. And I was like, how the hell do I remember how to play this? But it's muscle memory. And when you just let go, you don't think about it too much. It all comes back like quickly like that. Dude, I love playing the guitar. Like, I don't know if you guys like when you play like the piano or guitar, when you're just like, your energy and the vibration of that instrument like come together, and that feeling. Oh, it looks so good. That's what I look forward to. Good vibes.
Always good vibes.
Good vibes only. I kind of thought about like a little like doormat of like good vibes only, because like really this place is good vibes, but it's so basic. Like I don't like that. I don't like good vibes.
What's that commercial where it's the one where it's like, don't turn into your parents? That one, have you seen that, Zoji?
I love that commercial. Oh my
God, they're
God.
the best ones. Have you seen the new ones where it's like, live, laugh, love? Do we need this? Well, yeah, I do. No, we don't need this.
Oh my God, no, that's me.
Good vibes only.
You woke up early. No cares.
No, the thing is, I don't even like text decorations anyway.
No.
I just feel like, oh, family,
Show, don't tell.
laughter, like, bitch, what the fuck? Like, just put a pretty picture, make a laugh. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's just word substituting for lack of personality. I mean, like
every girl that first year at their dorm in college goes to Target and thinks they're the only one buying the peak, sign for their wall.
Right.
Like you realize that
Dance
they're
as if no one's watching.
But I mean, it's the same thing with Instagram captions and like all that kind of shit. It's always just this like, I don't have a real personality and I can't really put that out to the world yet. So I insert these words that people say that make me sound cool. Like,
Wow. Yeah. It's
Basically,
true though. I mean, I believe it.
Well, it's funny. It's interesting. Like, I don't know what it is, if it's a cultural thing or a product of our time or both, but there is like this thing where, I mean, everybody has a personality. Everyone's capable of creativity. Everyone can string a sentence together. But then there's this block where people like push that part of themselves down. And I don't know if it's just conformity or fear or what it is. Like, it's very weird. I don't know.
The part that makes us all unique, you mean?
Yeah, where like obviously different people are good at different things, but I really do believe that like there aren't people or I don't think there are people who are born just flat frequency. I think we learn to be flat frequency, and above a certain age that gets solidified in. So now I'm in college, I'll be in a group project and there'll be someone where they're like, where you have to write a sentence describing your experience. I can't do that. What are you talking, like, why are you limiting yourself like this? How, like, just think, like, what do you can do that. You can put your experiences in a sentence. You can do that. I don't know what it is that causes people to kind of flatten themselves. And I don't know.
Insecurity.
Yeah,
lack of confidence.
Fear of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
only tried and tested means, like.
I mean, I have that. I think everybody has that same little fear you get when you're in a situation and somebody else is probably thinking the same thing, but if you feel like you bring it up and they aren't thinking the same thing, then that's way worse. So you just stay silent. I saw some video where it was like, who else gets on an airplane with somebody like of like their whatever gender they're attracted to, who's around their age, and for some reason feels compelled, like they have to, like this is meant to be, and like, or like in the grocery store when you were a kid or a teenager and you'd see another teenager your age and they're like, a boy that's cute or a girl that you think is cute, and all of a sudden there's this like, and you're both thinking it, and so like when you're on a plane you could just be like, hey, we're like the same age, we should talk, but you won't do that because you're afraid that they're going to be like, I'm not thinking the same thing as you, which most likely they are. Like,
that's true.
That's so interesting.
The same exact thing, like, because it is the one abnormal thing there is like you got a bunch of geezers on the plane and then there's two kids and it's like, okay, well, that's weird. But
that's funny too, because then that insecurity is coming from an assumption of difference that isn't there. So it's kind of like, really, we're all very, very similar, to the point that like from an external view it's like we're all the same. Like, how we're like 95% genetically identical to like a banana or whatever. It's like that kind of thing where it's like people are all we're all the same, we should be able to relate to stuff, and then we go, no, I'm different, so I'm sure they're not thinking what I'm thinking, I better keep it in. So it's like, it's almost a weird ego paradox where it's like you're insecure because you have this arrogant idea that you're different, and it's like, that is weird. I never thought about it like that.
True. Yeah.
That's why Lyft and Uber has been such a good thing for the world, because it's like, if you suck at having a conversation and are kind of like a shy, off-putting person, you're not going to be a 5-star customer and you're not going to get the discounts. But if you sit there and you entertain your driver, or you shut up because they don't want to talk, you'll get you'll get that 5-star rating.
Yeah. I don't mind when they don't want to talk, but sometimes they could be gentler about it. Like, there have been a few times where I've been like, how's your day going? And they're like, can't believe you're asking me. It's fine. It's fine. And you're like, okay.
This isn't a taxi, man. This is not a taxi.
I'm in your car right now. Like,
that's funny, dude. But I mean, bring back all the bad negative emotions or whatever, and it all comes back to fear. So There's fear and there's love. That's it.
Hmm.
I never understood that or like believed that. Like there's only two emotions or there's only two like root things and it's either fear or love. That's
Well,
it.
it's like, have you guys?
And I was like, no.
Have you guys seen Donnie Darko?
Yeah.
So I
like
love
that
that.
movie.
There's that whole thing where Patrick Swayze and the older lady and their annoying like thing, they do that where they're like, these are the two emotions, fear or love. And Donnie Darko goes like, fuck that, it's more complicated than that, blah blah blah. And what's interesting is that that's such a good like metaphor for youth, because the fact that the messengers are annoying shitheads who are hypocrites and they're insincere and they're inauthentic and they're, you know, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, he dismisses their message, even though their message is actually right, which I thought was kind of interesting. It was only the most recent time I saw Donnie Darko that kind of dawned on me, where it's like, oh yeah, no, they're actually right. It's just they're wrong about everything else, so he assumes they're wrong about that too. It's kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. It's a good movie. That's a confusing ass movie. The first two times I saw it, I was high, so none of it made sense. And then I watched it the third time, and I was like, okay, this makes sense. It makes some sense. But it's like, I feel like I've watched that movie maybe 5 times.
Well, it's interesting because and maybe we'll find this as we kind of watch more movies like this and talk about it, where it's kind of, they've got cool psychedelic, spiritual, whatever going on. But it's more or less the same message as The Fountain, where it's just about accepting death and living in the now.
Yeah, it's funny because like I had watched that movie Found so many times and just was like, I guess there's some people just like to watch the movie, like in its simplest idea of what does that mean. That's what it means. They like to watch the movie. Right. They don't analyze it afterwards. They don't look up what this meant or what that meant. They watch it with their eyeballs. They see it, and then they go on with their day. And I feel like the first probably 5 times I watched The Fountain, just because I love the story and I thought it was so cool, that's basically what I did. It was just like,
same.
Didn't really think about what it meant, or even if it did have a deeper meaning, I was like, I don't really care. It's like, it's just a really cool story. But it's funny that, hey buddy, that thought process.
Yeah, I had the same thing. Oh wow, he was just, that's funny, he was
It's
just
so
lying
fluffy.
outside my door. Now he's up there.
It's huge.
He needs constant attention.
Like Katana.
Yeah.
When he's standing on his back legs, his head is 3'3". Like
So
if you
long.
grab him by his front paws and pick him up, and he's like this, he's like 3'3".
What? That's a huge cat. Like, what the fuck?
He's like part Maine Coon, so he's got those like hunting cat genes in him with the big fluffy ears and
What are you
the.
looking for?
He looks like a big tiger.
Yeah, well, yeah.
What's-
No, I'm getting Taco Bell right now.
Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Can you get me something?
I bet.
We're getting Sonic after this.
You guys are getting
yeah.
Sonic?
Hell yeah, dude.
There's no Sonics around here.
We don't have no Sonics around here.
No Sonics
Got
or
no
DQs.
Sonics?
The fuck? Or DQs?
There's no Sonics or DQs. I mean, if you want a DQ, you have to drive through your car.
I love when you go to DQ and they turn the thing upside down. They're like, you've never seen this before, right? And you're like, no, like.
I hate that shit.
Dude, the DQ peanut butter parfait. I haven't had one in so long because, you know, I'm lactose intolerant, but
Yeah, you probably shouldn't be going to Dairy Queen.
no, I definitely shouldn't be.
Peanut Buster sounds extremely suggestive. Try our new
I didn't get
Peanut
that.
Buster smoothie. Like, eat it with that weird ass name.
Come get the DQ nut
Say that
buster.
sucks. It's all the what is it, Gen? Are we Gen Z or are we?
Yeah, we're Gen Z.
Is it 95 through 2000 and
What's interesting, I thought it was like a concrete thing with the generations, but it's kind of, it depends on the survey. But generally, it's like 95 or 96 is the cutoff for millennials and Gen Z. So I could be the youngest year
text you.
of millennials or the oldest year of Gen Z. But Gen Z makes way more sense because that's more the culture I've grown up in, you know?
it's
weird
also
how
just
that-
analyzed off your age, and it has like no one ever talks about how like you could be a generation below, but your parents might be the same exact age. Like my parent,
Right.
like, there's people who are in their 30s who have parents my age and even older.
Right, that
It's-
is interesting. So you've got kind of, because your parents are like end of the boomers, right? So you've got boomer parents like a millennial, but you're Gen Z. That's interesting. Yeah, my dad is like, he's a little bit younger, so he's borderline. He's like right on the border where he's either like the youngest boomer or the oldest Gen X.
How old's your dad?
Math. 63, 1963.
Oh, so he's 57.
So, yeah.
Because my mom was born in 1960. She considered herself a baby boomer.
Yeah, 1960 is baby boomer.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
63, 64 is kind of, is usually like the cutoff for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then my dad's 10 years younger than my mom.
That's interesting.
Very interesting.
I
He
love
had
that. I
game
love
back in the
that
day.
time paradox thing there, where it's like it like matters for so long, and then all of a sudden
Right.
it doesn't matter. But it,
But wait, but she was 30 and he was 20 when they got together. And she was already like,
That's significant at that age, I feel like.
yeah, it is, because he was really immature and she was like very mature, like,
looking for a mom girlfriend.
yeah, I mean, she was like a cougar, you know what I mean? And that's the thing, like,
Those can be
he
nice.
always said that. He's like, Michelle was always, she was my girlfriend. She was like my wife, my lover, my mom. She was everything in one, And I think that's why their relationship was so problematic, because there was no separation. There was
I
no
thought you were gonna-
boundaries there,
I thought you were gonna say that's why it worked so well. I was like,
No, it did not work well.
Because there are a lot of women like that, and they're like in that like
Mhm,
past 27 that aren't like in a solidified relationship,
mhm.
where a lot of them start to look for like younger guys to like be that like that mature character, even though in their own age group they're not actually mature. And it's
Yeah,
like, that's
no,
why you're-
well, the only reason my mom actually accepted my dad was because he kept coming after her. Like, he just wanted to be with her, and she, for the look, I mean, honestly,
persistent.
they met both as like what? They were running in El Cajon.
Oh,
So that's how they met. So it's like nothing was healthy there,
similar interests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the age difference doesn't fucking matter if that's what's going on.
You know,
That's
it
a big
doesn't
thing to have
matter.
in common.
Yeah, exactly. So
That's
That's
kind
how
of
they
funny
got-
too. I feel like that's kind of a generational difference too, where like our parents' age and older, it was kind of like, well, she said no, so I just hung out outside of her work, and then I would walk home with her whether she wanted to or not, and I just kept asking, and eventually she said yes.
yeah.
And now that would be like psychotic behavior. Like
Mhm.
they'd be like, no. If she doesn't
Absolutely.
respond to your text message, it's over. Like,
I mean, it's one thing if it's charming, it's another if
Right.
it's like you're being a creep, like,
Exactly.
and you can get that vibe from somebody,
that's true. Like, have you guys,
So-
Zochi, have you seen Blue Valentine?
No,
Oh, we'll have to add that to the watch list. That's a good one.
I don't watch movies. I don't
I
watch
don't-
anything.
That reminds me of Taxi Driver, though, how he's like, he just like
Right.
pulls up by her work and is just like staring at her.
See, Taxi Driver, it's kind of creepy. Blue Valentine, Ryan Gosling, not creepy. But everything
Yeah.
he does in that movie is creepy. Like, he gets on the bus, he follows her, he won't leave her alone. She's like, can you go? And he's like, no, you'll like this. I promise. And you're like, if he was less attractive, that would not be okay at all. Like,
Well, yeah, that's
kinda
just,
interesting.
yeah, absolutely. That's just furthering. We experienced that shit in ballet, where like couldn't get away with anything, not a thing.
no.
And it was like, yeah, but if like he looked like Zac Efron and touched you on the shoulder, would you give a fuck? No. So then you can't care. If you
Right.
don't care about, if it
What?
has to do with the level of attractiveness that freaks you out, and not
It's a
that you
gray
were
area,
touched,
though.
it's like, no, like
Yeah.
just that they're like someone touched me and they're like, were you creeped out by it? Yes, but only because they're ugly. And it's like, oh well.
At least
then
that's
fuck
honest.
At least it's honest.
Yeah, but only because he's cute. Or not cute.
It's sad.
I
it's
don't
sad,
know.
but
Even I've gotten creepy vibes from hot guys, so I'm like,
Mm.
I don't know. Just
Well, yeah,
depends
they-
on the person.
They a lot of time, like a lot of guys assume that it's just gonna be the same thing with every person after a while, and it's like
Yeah.
there needs to be people out there cutting these dudes down, like.
You said it,
I
not
think
me.
David and I both just thought of the same good-looking and creepily persistent guy.
Oh, I wasn't thinking about, but yeah, I guess he, I guess he fits the. Or
We're
should we
dropping
call him-
names.
Should we call him Xanthropus?
not Zochi.
No, I figured it's somebody else.
Yeah.
No, it's Xanthropus.
Xanthropus.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Lord.
Y'all are
That's Louis CK,
savages.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I'm so upset that he had to be how he is because he used to be putting out all this good comedy, and now it's just like
He
I
was
can't-
funny and now he's a creep.
Now it's hard to listen to him because that's all I think about is like, oh yeah, you like to jerk off in front of people.
I saw this show that like I think he helped, he was one of the creators on the show, and I was like, and I wanted to watch it, and then I was like, no, I can't.
Dude, he did a movie with Woody Allen where like John Malkovich is dating Louis C.K.'s like teenage daughter, and that's like a quirky comedy, and I'm like, okay, you're officially in Woody Allen territory where you're taking your creepy thing and you're making it like, isn't this cute? And it's like, no, it's not really.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Dude, there's a lot wrong with Hollywood. We should probably talk about that one of these days. Fucking Hollywood.
This is true.
Very true. Also, please fucking watch that D.I.D. show I told you about.
Okay. I think
I just finished it.
I think David, you'll probably like that too. So maybe we can watch that.
What is it?
Yeah, you
It's
guys should
dissociative
definitely
identity
watch it.
disorder. It's multiple personalities, like Split, but it's documentary.
But not like Split.
Because he's not murdering people.
Well, he doesn't have a perfect outfit ready for every character. Walks in with a pearl necklace, like.
Dude, she hasn't seen Split.
This guy.
Doesn't she reinforce this, please? Doesn't she need to see Split? Like,
I mean, I'll watch it.
I think it's silly in some parts, but it's definitely a good
Oh, yeah.
story.
Oh yeah,
His acting
I'll
is
watch
great,
it.
and that girl's acting with the eyeballs is great too.
with the eyeballs.
It's the really
Bullshit.
pretty one with the eyeballs.
It's the girl from Queen's Gambit. I don't know if you've seen like the posters for
Oh, that girl. Yeah,
The
yeah,
girl
yeah.
with the big ass
I don't
eyeballs,
remember
yeah.
her name, but yeah,
Eyeball girl.
Yeah,
she was in something else too that I watched recently, but I don't
it
remember.
was
what
in
it
The Witch.
Mm.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, I watched The Witch recently again. But
I love those memes
Yeah, I
where
think-
it's like, girl can write with both hands, 14th century dads, witch!
true. No, yeah, I think you guys would like that show though. She's like a mother of two with dissociative identity disorder, and she's got several different parts, and you can see her like switching, and she explains like her amnesia that she has. You see her in therapy with her therapist, so it's really cool.
Those poor children.
Very, I mean,
Right? Thank you. See, that was my reaction too. Zochi was like, you don't understand, because I'm like, that sounds
look,
freaky as
fear,
shit.
it's fear before understanding, right? And so the psychologists, and there's more than just one psychologist that speaks on this documentary, but they talk about how the priority of the parts, and because it's Jane's main priority, the main part, right? Her main priority is to always keep her boys safe. So that's a priority for each one of her parts. That's the first thing that when her parts speak and they don't like something, they say, well, I don't think this person is good for the boys, and I don't think it's good for Jane. It's always the boys first and then Jane. So yeah, and then you have the psychologists that speak. They say, a lot of people think that she's unfit to be a parent, but there's no safety concerns, So, I mean, you have to watch it before you
definitely got to watch that. It sounds interesting.
conclude.
Yeah, I mean, having a parent that has like 7 personalities that each one of them takes care of you is probably better than having like one parent that beats the shit out of you. So like,
That's true.
There you go. There you
also,
go.
what you were saying about that is like fear before,
Understanding.
yeah, which also can be flipped is like they've never learned to fear that person, so it's like it's not abnormal to them.
That's true.
It's
just
like
used to what you're used to.
that's just their life, so they're like, this isn't weird to me. I'm not afraid
But
of.
the kids don't know. She hasn't told them they have a DID because they're too young. They're like what, 7 and 6 or something, 5, 6, something like that. So they're young. So she goes, I don't think it's age appropriate yet. They know that mommy has a unique brain, and that's it. Like her brain's different. And they even do, like in the very last episode, they do an fMRI, so functioning MRI, I think it's called, and it's when they're taking, you know, brain activity, and they take brain activity of her when she's in her resting state, and then when one of her other parts is in their resting state. So you could see the difference in brain activity there, like really physically on a scan, which is kind of awesome. So yeah. But yeah, all right, guys, I gotta go because I gotta get ready for work.
Yeah, let's go get some Sonic.
Alrighty, cool. It's fun.
I'm jealous.
Nice meeting you.
It was nice meeting you, David.
Yeah, we'll do this again.
Yes, let's do this
everybody,
again.
don't forget to check out the other stuff on davincicho.com. Also, go to GoFundMe, life-saving treatment for Xochi. We're going to figure out curing her Hep C. Frankie dancing in the background. What up?
He said you were dancing in the background, babe?
Yes.
He said yes.
Yeah.
He's such a weirdo.
All right.
Alrighty.
We're ready for work.
Okay, thank you. Bye, guys.